Hello. Do not adjust your screens because you are having a crisis. It's this crisis live to you from New Zealand with our weekly Crushing Krisis live. The poll list. What is it? It's every comic that came out last week. And guess what? I have read more than most people, more than 40 of the comics out last week in the American digital and floppy market. And I have a couple of tricks up my sleeve this week of things that didn't even reach digital and I still managed to read. So hello, how are you? Let me just put down the guitar so I'm not wielding a deadly weapon that kills fascists at you. And then let's get underway, because what do we do right when we start the show? We immediately talk about my top 10 series of 2025. And then we get into the greetings. We get into my moment of crisis. We get into the pull list. But the first thing is algorithmically, and it's my algorithm, not anybody else's. I figure out what my top 10 books of the year so far have been. And we are going to go over them right now in my patented 1 minute or less countdown. Are you ready? Let's go. So at number 10, we have sneaking back into the top 10, which suggests something else might have plummeted. Mike Carey and team on Ghostbox from Comixology Originals. You can read that right now on your Comixology account if you have Amazon Prime. Still in the top 10, The Tin Can Society, an amazing comic book we all fell in love with last week by Peter Warren, Francesco Mobili, and Chris Chukri from Rick Remender's Giant Generator. Then we have Jed McKay's The Avengers, which I love because Fareed Karami is the artist, but he's not going to be the ongoing artist, so we'll see if this one holds on. Then we have Jason Aaron Bug Wars. I'm so excited for issue number 2 with art from Mohamed Ashwar, colors from Matthew Wilson, and letters from Becca Carey. Then we have the Ultimates from Dennis Camp, Juan Frigeri, and Federico Blee. Next, The Power Fantasy by Kieran Gillen, Casper Wingard, and Clayton Cowles. I love this comic book. Now we're getting serious. It's One World Under Doom by Ryan North, R.B. Silva, and David Curiel. But wait, the top 3 has shaken up a bit. We have Batman Dark Patterns surging after an issue that I loved this week. I can't wait to talk about it. Then, of course, Nice House by the Sea. And still at number 1, going nowhere fast, is Kelly Sue DeConnick, David Lopez, Chris Peter, and Clayton Cowles on FML. Still my favorite comic of 2025. Have you read it yet? If not, this might be the time. Okay, so let's put all those toys away and let's see how y'all are doing. We'll do a quick greetings to everybody, and then we'll get underway with the moment of crisis that I still don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know. All right, so let's see. Bunkmaster B getting in early, as he loves to do, with an initial comment about assorted crisis events, which he really dug. And I may or may not have dug. I guess you've got to stay tuned in only to the A's. So how long could that be from now? 40, 50 minutes? And we will see. A Fifth of Jack Gaming says, can't keep a good crisis down. Have you been tuning into A Fifth of Jack's Gaming channel? He does sort of a miniaturized version of this where he has some of his favorite floppy pulls every week and he goes through them and then power ranks them, much like my power rank. So he is in the Friends of Crushing Krisis strip on my channel, so you can find his channel as well. Max Appleman this week had a few issues that made me very happy, so I'll say this was a good week. Max and I, fun fact, we were trading ratings back and forth this weekend, as we were also trading Beatles songs and all the other things we swapped back and forth. And Max consistently rates 1/2 a point higher than me. So I was sending him all my, I thought this, every time he was 1/2 a point higher than me. So Max, canonically, just a little bit friendlier than I am. Ryan Bragg saying hello to everyone. Edwin Billiot saying hello. Time for another live stream. Super Chop, who I got to talk to, since, of course, you are one of my regulars, as we've established, Super Chop. I had a super secret live stream on Thursday afternoon, US, Friday afternoon, New Zealand, Australia. Did you all see it? If you didn't, perhaps you have not clicked the notification bell. Well, we'll have a little bit more to say about that, but I think there's going to be occasionally a second stream per week. So if you are wanting to not miss not only this regularly scheduled crisis event, but also other unscheduled crisis events, you should click the notification bell. James Abel, TikTok. Yes, I see you, friend. Neil Pereira, morning all. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. I am so far. It's a gorgeous day in New Zealand, and I was not behind at all this morning. I mean, I know it was a couple minutes late, but this was low stress. Of course, it was a much smaller pull than last week, so this could just be the amount of pull is directly correlated to the amount of stress. Saz Merv, hello to you. Let's see, anyone else I have not said hello to yet? Pitima, hello to you as well. Glad you can be here. Eric Gaza, always love to see your little fanged face in the profile pic there. Logan Wayne, who I had some great conversations with in both streams that I was hosting and streams that I was commenting on last week. Hello to Krisis and everyone in the chat. Hope we are all doing well. Let's see. And Omnibo. Hello, my friend. Omnibo, of course, a friend of Crushing Krisis on his Aussieverse channel, which does really, really awesome content. Unfortunately, it's often at like 10 o'clock at the night for me, which means in the United States at like 6 in the morning. But if you're an early riser, if you're like at the end of a night shift or you're commuting on the train, great chance to listen about comics live at that hour, which no one else is really doing. So I'm going to keep saying that until you all start listening to it, because they really have a fantastic production. And Omnibo has given me a lot of help trying to figure out some StreamYard things in the background. Hello to Kane, my East Coast friend who gets my Philadelphia references. And Michael Wesleys, greetings from Rotterdam, greetings from Wellington to you, sir. Hank is here. Hey, everybody, happy for Krisis. Sundays are here in Sweden as I struggle with looming Monday deadlines. This is my looming Monday deadline. So if I can get through this, you can get through whatever you have to do. I only had to read for like, 8 hours. I'm sure whatever you've got to do. I mean, it could be that hard. I don't know. Raging Sloths, not somebody I always get to say hello to, but happy to say hello. I'm listening while I'm moving. Luckily, it's in the same city, but crazy how many books can fit in shelves. Yeah, each one of these shelves, I think we underestimate when it's just sitting on the shelf, how serious it is just to move each one of them. And these 5x5s are 25 of these shelves, and if you got a few of those, that adds up quickly. So I hope that you have a safe and healthy and easy move within your city today. And Cruel Angel, I missed the super secret live stream. It's secret. It's totally secret. I feel like I have lip gloss on a tooth. I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep sucking my teeth again. There. Okay, that's better. I'm sure that's exactly the shout out that you wanted, Cool Angel. It was super secret, and I'll talk about what it was in just a second. Jordan Pauls was there, and we had some substantial discussions with each other over the course of the now I get to see if I remember this name that's in. Sorry, I kind of hold on. Wait. We had some substantial discussions, and it was really fun. That stream is fun because it's not as much about me doing a minute every minute, so I got to talk more, but I'll explain more about what it was for everybody else in a moment. Now we come to my friend with the Cyrillic alphabet. I remember it starts with a K. I mean, it says K, but I remember my name is Krisis. Your name is Krillil. Oh, I'm really trying. I really try to always associate names with mnemonic moments in time. So since I don't have a face for you, I just have a K. I really tried to associate it with that moment in time and where I was sitting and what I looked like and what I was feeling. And that's the only way I can learn names. Like if we're just in a party and you're like, "Hi, I'm Chris," and I go, "Oh, hi, I'm Krisis." I've already forgotten your name unless I associated a specific sense memory. Like, oh, there was a fruit salad with prominent strawberries behind you. You're strawberry fruit salad Chris. That's the only way that I can remember names. My brain is a little strange. And Kane, I'll just revisit one more time because Kane mentioned Lady Gaga and Heart's greatest hits. Yes, I love Heart. They're one of my favorite bands. Kane played me a huge compliment, greatest possible compliment last week by saying my original song that I played, Cuts Both Ways, sounded a bit like Heart, which is something I aspire to almost every single song that I write. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. But that Lady Gaga, it keeps hitting me and hitting me and hitting me some more constantly. First it was, Killa, then it was the Taylor Swifty sounding one. Now it's Zombie Killer. I'm your zombie bride. And then I do have a Lady Gaga cover from the album. I don't know if I want to get into cover songs in this because there's royalties and monetization, and I don't really know how that's going to go. So, okay. So I have language tips, something like that. Oh no. Well, I tried. So in Cyrillic, it's actually part of my name. It could be pronounced as Cyril. Oh, well, that's easy. Wait. So I could just say Cyril. I could just look. That's an easy mnemonic for me. I could look at your name, remember it's in Cyrillic, and then say Cyril. That's almost too easy. That feels like a cheat code. Are you sure? Okay. So there was a super secret stream last week. I decided I wanted to go through the DCBS catalog because all of you kept telling me it sounded like a good idea. So I blame you squarely. So we got on Thursday afternoon US, and I went through all 7 of the big publishers in the DCBS catalog, and we talked about every collected release, but then some singles too. It took 4 hours. So I think that's going to come back as a monthly show. I hit it because there were some things that were rough going, and I had problems with the screen and whatever. And also, I just think I could do better on the format. So that's the thing. Some of the extra bonus live streams I do, they might not stick around on the channel forever because I don't want them to be findable forever. So thank you for everybody that tuned in. It was great feedback. It was a super good practice run, and I cannot wait to come back next month with a little bit more preparation to do that in a little bit more of a controlled fashion. But there are some other second videos, and mostly they will be arriving US time Wednesday or Thursday afternoon if they are live. I don't know that there's going to be one this week, but I'm starting, now that I got my sea legs under me, now that I've kind of figured it out, I feel like maybe there's going to be a second one on some weeks. So if you want to see me talk about DCBS pre-orders, if you want to see me talk about the new Penguin Random House catalog entries from DC, if you want to see me get on one day in a mood and tier rank every Marvel title quite passionately and with lots of yelling, those are the kinds of things that may happen if I have enough free time. So please click the notification bell. Okay. Wait, this is a different human being. I had Pity Mom, now I have Anima. How bad do you want me? Yes, it does sound like Taylor Swift. It's so interesting how Taylor Swift really does have an identifiable sound. Like, people love to slag her that she's like not that talented or whatever. None of that stands in this house. And she has a very specific way that she writes. She is a songwriter that can be imitated, and it's the rhythm of the vocals. It's the way she puts quicker vocals like in the middle of every line. I could like chart it out for you. But as soon as I heard that Lady Gaga song, How Bad Do You Want Me, for the first time, it's people are saying that musically it sounds like 1989, but I think lyrically and the pace of the melody sounds like a Taylor Swift song, even from Taylor Swift's last record. So I love that kind of stuff. You know, I'm a huge musical. Wait, I cannot let an appearance from Novarg slip away because we know that I love Novarg's profile picture. It brings me such joy. And it's from a comic that they are drawing and that they have promised they are going to keep working on so we can all read it sometime this year. Okay. I guess that brings us to a moment of crisis. So we're going to do moment of crisis. I'll do a brief AMA. So if you have questions you're dying to know about the Lady Gaga album, about comic books, about why I did a secret stream, about what life has been like, although spoilers, I really have not left the house that much in the last week. It's been very busy. I'm happy to take your questions. But first, let's do a moment of crisis, shall we? So as always, I have not thought about this a darn second. Okay, let's see. Oh, I know, because this is on my mind. Get to give a shout out to one of my favorite songwriters, actually. So it's on my mind because today, one of my favorite songwriters, huge influence on me, and actually the writer of the first song I ever performed in front of people, Tracy Bonham, started a new Kickstarter for a new album. Tracy Bonham, if you remember the 90s at all, she's the singer of the song Mother, Mother. Mother, Mother, how's the family? I'm just calling to say hello. Anyway, that's not the point of this moment of crisis. It got me thinking about Kickstarter because all of us comic fans, of course, know there was another big Kickstarter in our lives announced in the past week or so, which is that Transformers Kickstarter, which is getting all of Transformers together and integrating the UK comics. But this is not just about the Transformers Kickstarter. This is just about Kickstarter as a way that people are pre-ordering things from comic book companies. I know some people have a lot of opinions about, should comic book companies be using Kickstarter? Is that fair? Is it just for the little guys? But I want to get away from the ethical concerns of comic book companies using it. I want to talk for a second about the way the consumers think about products. Because I was thinking, who outside of comics in our strange little direct market pre-orders things these days? I was really going around the internet for a couple of minutes thinking, like, what do people pre-order? They pre-order sneakers because they're afraid they're going to sell out on the first day, right? So that's the thing. You pre-order a thing if you really think there's going to be a limited quantity. People pre-order the new iPhone because they want it on day one, right? But they don't assume that, well, with the sneakers, they assume it might be a limited quantity. With the iPhone, it's just about not having to wait in line. So that's one reason people pre-order. The other reason people pre-order is for like special extras or gifts, right? A lot of times if you pre-order a video game, which most of which are delivered via streaming now, they're downloadable is the word I'm looking for. Old. Hello, old. But you do that because you're going to get like some extra DLC, right? And so with comics, I was just thinking this idea that you have to constantly pre-order them. Books are not a thing that I don't think most people think about pre-ordering. I think they think a book is just a thing that shows up in a library, that shows up in a bookstop shop. And I think to most general citizens, lay people, right, commoners, they think comic books are a lot like a magazine. Like it's just a thing that comes out and that they're just stocked at a store. I don't think they really fully understand this idea of you might go and the store might not have enough copies, because I've heard people say that and I've heard stores say that. And so the direct market, I think, doesn't make any sense to people who are non-comic people. I know I've tried to explain it to like friends and family, and they're like, so every month you have to do that? You can't just subscribe? And I'm like, well, you can kind of subscribe, but then there's new number ones and there's relaunches and there's death issues and there's trade paperbacks. So not really, you can't. And so I was thinking about that in terms of Kickstarter and why comic companies turn to Kickstarter. And the thing is, I think it's Kickstarter has now become a noun and a verb in the public consciousness, right? Just like Twitter had tweets and then some moron threw it all away. Kickstarter and Kickstartering and I Kickstartered are a thing that a lot of digital native people who've been on the internet for the past decade really understand. And so to say, hey, do you want to kickstart the Transformers book? People understand what that means. And more people are going to see it on Kickstarter and see the resultant PR and the thing that's known as earned PR, which is people just writing about you without having to pay them to. People are going to see that way more than just soliciting a book to the direct market, especially for these properties that have outside visibility. Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, even maybe eventually X-Men or Superman or Batman. You're going to imagine if DC did a Batman Kickstarter. Think of something we all want. Omnibuses of the entire 1970s of Batman. Imagine trying to sell those in the direct market. DC would maybe solicit one. It might get canceled. They'd eventually put it out. It would get discounted. Then they would never do another one, or it'd be like 5 years. We've seen how this goes, right? Where if they put on Kickstarter, it is a special first time only color oversized hardcover collection of every one of the classic 1970s Batman issues that inspired the Dark Knight you know today. Do you know how many frigging thousands of people would back that? So many more people than even know an omnibus exists right now. And that would allow them to print really nice, fancy ones for us on the direct market. And it would subsidize the cost of it on the direct market too, because they would have more people ordering it. So when you see like Skybound do that for the G.I. Joe compendiums, it's not because they're greedy or because they don't want to spend their own money on it. It's because such a order of magnitude more people pre-ordered the thing from Kickstarter. Why? Because Kickstarter is a noun and a verb, because they feel like they got a special limited edition thing, and because nobody has time to mess with the direct market outside of us nerds. So this is not really about the ethics of Kickstarter. It's about the visibility of Kickstarter. And quite honestly, I've really come around on this, even though I don't like it when things Kickstart, because they cost way more for me to get shipped from Kickstarter than if I just got them shipped from direct comic book service, because they have a regular FedEx to me, and Kickstarter, each thing is a one-off. I would support all of these companies going to Kickstarter for their big projects. Marvel, you want to go to Kickstarter for all the Krakoa omnibuses and it means we get them in a speedy fashion? Go for it. Marvel, you got a license back for something like Shang-Chi and you want to go ahead and try to get all the epic collections printed again while you still have the license? Kickstart, baby. 70s Batman, Bronze Age Wonder Woman, a complete collection. I mean, Top Cow's doing it. That's how I get these books, right? But Top Cow, Cyberforce does not have the name brand recognition of these other things, and it's still allowing Cyberforce to exist and come out in hardcover, which we probably couldn't have gotten without Kickstarter, because more people from the 90s who are as ancient as me saw the Kickstarter notice than are paying attention to the direct market pre-order system. So that's my moment of Kickstarter. Now sponsored by Kickstarter, it's a moment of Kickstarter with your host, Krisis. That's my moment of crisis. Gosh, Kickstarter got me. I did at one point do a we'll save it for the AMA. But I guess my point is, I don't fear that. It would be a best case scenario for me if all of the comic brands we know and love could make it out to more people. I'm constantly flustered by the idea of the direct market, or the idea that if you want to tell something that they want a digital copy, the only way that they can get it is to go on to Comixology, which is part of Amazon, which goes to your Kindle. Like that, it's too many steps. Too many layers. If you look at all the most popular brands and products in the world, there are easy ways to buy them, and comics violates that rule. And then we wonder why we don't have the audience for the actual comic books that we do in the movies. And that has been my moment of crisis. You never know what you're going to get. I love Kickstarter. I'm like a super backer. I've backed in every single category. I've backed literally hundreds of projects. I was a very early adopter of Kickstarter. Music, of course, art books, comic books. I've backed live theater on Kickstarter. I've backed apparel. My wallet is from Kickstarter. And at one point, a couple of years ago, when I thought I was going to do more D&D content before Hasbro really crapped the bed, I was doing a weekly roundup of all new D&D 5e third-party books from Kickstarter. It was a lot of fun because I really felt like I was like breaking down each book and getting to know it and why it was made and what it featured. No one was reading that. I would post it to socials and stuff, but I'm not really present on like TTRPG boards. And I was thinking about extending myself into that and doing that alongside comic book stuff. And I just at the time didn't have the audience. And I was like, you know what? Let's just focus on the comic book stuff. But that was a fun period. Now I probably wouldn't do it, even though I love still getting third-party D&D stuff, because I'm just kind of over all the shenanigans from Hasbro about the, changing the license, and then they want to use more AI. I'm like, you can just go pound dirt. Okay, so now I'm going to put up a different banner, and that banner is, wait, it's not quite AMA, because I'm going to put up the CrushingKrisis.com banner. One of the fun things about the secret show, sorry to FOMO you who missed it, but one of the fun things is, for every collection that we weren't really sure where it fit, I went to CK, because CrushingKrisis.com has guides to all of Marvel and DC, and it shows you where these things fit in terms of the grand scope of all the things that have been collected. Omnibuses, epics, current trade paperbacks, everything. That wouldn't make as much sense for the show, because the show is just about flying through, but it was really fun to do. And actually some people had some really good feedback on it. So that's one of the things I want to kind of polish up and refine, is being able to, for each collection, kind of show you on Crushing Krisis, where does it fit? Has it been reprinted before? What's on either side of it? Because I think I'm uniquely positioned to do that. I don't really think many other people have a website or a trove of content that allows them to do that in a streamlined way that I do, but I do have to give it a little bit more thought. So anyway, this show is theoretically a 3-hour advertisement for CrushingKrisis.com. So I hope when you have a question about reading order, or you have a question about where to jump in, or you have a question about collections, that you do visit the site and use the guides all linked across the eyebrow strip of navigation at the top. And of course, this is all powered by Patreon. And in fact, because I streamed extra, I am now going to have to subscribe to StreamYard. So that little duck, I think he's in that corner for you. That little duck, or maybe he's in that corner. Somewhere there's a little duck. And the little duck is going to go away, because I am going to have to pay for StreamYard this month. And those kinds of unexpected expenses are paid for by Patreon, especially if you pledged even at the $1 a month level. Although I'd love it if you didn't do it on your Apple device, because that now takes out more money, which it just gives to Apple, which is crazy. It's your money, and you want me to have it, and then Apple takes 30 cents of the dollar. That's crazy. Okay, now I'm going to put up the Ask Me Anything banner. We're going to go back to the comments. I'm going to have no more than 8 minutes, and hopefully less. And then we are going to get into the books. So let's see what else people are talking about here. Okay, let's scroll uppity up. Bunkmaster just having some conversation from before the Moment in Krisis. On my wife and my first date, we did karaoke, and she sang How Do I Get You Alone by heart, one of my favorite songs, deep in the bowels of my channel. James, don't link it. Make people look. Deep in the bowels of my channel. I might even be unlisted, so James would be of no help here. There is a cover of me doing that song, and I love that song. Great song. Am I in standard tuning right now? Anyway, love that song. Okay. Novarg. Yeah, what up? Oh, we already saw that one. We did, but that's okay. I'm always happy to see Novarg. Eric Garza, completely agreeing on Taylor Swift sounding song. It made me do a double take. Yeah, there were rumors that Taylor Swift was actually the backing vocals on that song, but I think that was just people wishful thinking. Phenomenal AC, hello to you as well. Here's a link to that Kickstarter. I don't know what it sounds like yet. Look, Tracy Bonham is just somebody I ride or die for. I've seen her live many times. She's so influential on me. I cannot possibly explain. And hopefully maybe one of my secret shows one week will be a music show. Would you all revolt if I used my notification powers and it turned out to be all about music and not comics? Would you be like, Krisis, what are you doing? Who are you? They is me all by myself, one dude behind an empty page. Well, I said they because I don't always remember everybody's gender, and so I will just they people until it comes back to me, even though I know from YouTube stats that 97% of my viewership supposedly is male, but YouTube infers that from other data. It's not just people saying, yes, I tick the mailbox. But yes, they is me in this case, or they is he in the case of Novarg, one dude behind an empty page, but you have to keep creating it so we get to the point that we can read it. Lance J. McNair, it's hardly a live stream if Lance is not here, so welcome to Lance. Kane saying that she always pre-orders video games. Depending on the comic, will pre-order that too. Edward Billiot saying, I always pre-order my favorite authors, but I pre-order comic omnis for the deep discounts and also to budget it now to get it out of the way. That's another thing that people don't understand when they're not in the direct market, that like you only really get a discount on things when you pre-order. Well, I mean, there is IST and stuff, but this idea that if you pre-order, it's like half the price. I think that's another thing that people just and it's a crazy thing to understand. Why would it be that way? Video games, I don't think are like that. They're not half the price when you pre-order them. Phenomenal AC pre-orders omnis seems almost necessary judging by the way they're selling out so quickly. Yeah, I used to be more of a week one in-stock trades order person, but then the first time that I missed something and I had to find it for like triple the price in New Zealand, I was like, oh no, that's over. We're doing pre-orders now. And then I've been pre-ordering ever since. Raising Sloths, the last pre-order they did was DC versus Marvel due to fear of it being sold out. And that FOMO was real. What happens when fear of missing out is justified? Justified fear of missing out, real fear of missing out. FOMO, I don't know. I'm trying to make a better acronym, but it was true. It was real. It was a very real fear. Cool Angel pre-orders pretty much everything. Omnis, action figures, steelbooks, limited edition, Blu-ray sets. That's cool. I mean, I am like that, but I think to live in that world, you have to live in the world of always being aware of like what's coming out and solicited. And some people, you know, we are like the crazy super fans just by virtue of being on YouTube talking about comics. A lot of people just have no awareness. Like a movie comes out and they're like, oh, hey, that new Jurassic Park movie is out. It's been out for a couple weeks. And people are like, you just heard about that? Because we're all like in the guts of the internet, seeing things as they get announced, waiting for them to come up for pre-order. But that we're a very, very small tribe. I think most people just encounter things when they are in market. Sasmurf saying, I wondered if Marvel or DC pay attention to I don't have any insider tea when I say these things. I just am a prognosticator. I pay attention to data and trends. I think Marvel and DC noticed. I do. I think they understand that they could put something really big on there, and it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. Jarn Paul, I've trouble with R's in the live stream. I have to warm up more, honestly. But your name every time, Jarn Paul's, it just really gets me. But then I have fun saying it because I'm like, no, say it right. So I think that's why I read your comments a lot. I mean, I don't know you all personally, so it really only takes a little bit of a mnemonic link for me to remember one of you in specific. And you, it's like, ooh, the name I've got to really concentrate to say correctly. Jarn Paul's. See, I did great that time. Is kickstarting for Marvel and DC just too much work for their departments? Well, I think that's the other side of what Sasmurth just said. Their whole operation is built to get into the direct market and to get into bookstores and things. So Kickstarter is, you have to have direct fulfillment. I mean, if you look at Hasbro and the way they do for the Marvel Legends, and they've HasLabs, they had to build their own fulfillment process to do that. And fulfillment is no joke. I mean, you have to source the cardboard boxes. You have to know how to pack things. You have to have a shipping partner. You have to deal with address changes, returns. So I think the only way Marvel or DC would do it is if they just found a really solid fulfillment partner that can handle that, because Marvel is not hiring a department of people to individually ship us our omnibuses. But if they figure it out through a fulfillment department partner, my fantasy that I've always talked about is, what if Marvel just announced the whole slate of omnibuses for the year? And you could just be like, I will sign up for the X-Men track. I will buy all 7 of these X-Men omnibuses, right? And they give us like a pretty good discount because it doesn't have to go through the direct market, but not too heavy because they don't want to like total. That's the other thing you made me think of. I think Marvel and DC specifically would be afraid of screwing direct market partners. So the discounts on a Kickstarter wouldn't be very good, which G.I. Joe kind of got away with by kind of hiding the discount in terms of, well, you're buying these in bulk and you're getting this lovely box. And it still probably was more expensive than you would get it on the direct market if you used one of these pre-order sites. So yeah, I think the downside of thinking about Marvel and DC going this route is that things would probably be full cover price because we know they would also go to the direct market and they wouldn't want to undercut their direct target market people. Hank pre-orders almost all books and other media. I mean, I should know who my audience is. You all pre-order. People don't know what an omnibus is. When those comic movies were still popping out and were doing good in comic shops, people walked in and said, oh, they have comic books of these movies as well. Exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. No, Mark. 5th of Jack Gaming, that interesting take on Kickstarter. I pumped for that Transformer one. It is pretty hot. Ooh, John, I remember you asked me this at the end of another stream and I didn't get to it. I do have kind of oily fingers, even if they're like fresh scrubbed. It's just everybody's body chemistry is different. And if I'm reading an all black page, it will leave a little mark on a page. And it's like, are we going to be like wearing gloves for this? It's one of the reasons I kind of got out of physical reading. I just feel like by touching the things, they degrade. And like, I'd rather just see it on the screen and beat up my computer every day. So, I don't have an answer to that. I mean, some people literally might have some really like white cotton gloves that they read with, but then it's harder to turn the pages. So I don't know. I think for me, it's just being aware of how I grip. I try not to like hold over the page because then I get like a little thumb smear on every page. I try to like let the book rest more and then just turn from the edge of the page. That's the only hot tip I really have for you. Edwin Billiot kickstarted Mike Grell's Sable and Bill Willingham's Elementals. I doubt either book would be able to exist. That's the other thing. There are things in Kickstarter for smaller creators that, again, I think Mike Grell hit more people who know who Mike Grell is and care with the Kickstarter than he would have just got through the direct market. It's not just because he needed like the money up front. It's because I think, especially for these classic creators who are really well known to people in their late 30s through late 50s, I just don't think as many of those people that were buying comics by the millions in the early 1990s are paying attention to the direct market now. But if you kickstart, the news might get to them. So I do think that's really huge for kind of our classic creators. Super job. Yeah, all that D&D stuff from last year is why I can now afford to buy comic books again. Yeah, I have every 5e book from like original 5e, not 1D&D. And when they announced and they did all the 1D&D shenanigans, and the thing is, I playtested all of the 1D&D playtest material, and I gave feedback, and they still did stuff that I thought was unnecessary and didn't streamline, actually made the game more confusing and less fun. And so I was like, great, you know what? I've got my 5e. I have friends who still play 3E and 3.5e. So I'm like, I've got my 5e. You can never take that away from me. Eventually it'll go away from D&D Beyond. I'll have to figure out how to do spell slots on paper again, which is the worst, but I'll always have it. Patrick Borgold saying hello there. Bunkmaster, speaking of D&D, I'm in person or Roll20. I have not played in person since 2014 because all my friends are in America that I play D&D with. I do have the Eberron book. I love the Eberron book. I do use Warforged, but I'm not really interested in the official campaign settings. I like the lore from the settings, but then I just like to pick apart the lore and take little parts for myself. Oh my gosh, y'all are really talking a lot. And I'm 1 minute over when I said it would be, but this is why we're here, right? Human connection. Pitty crowdfunding is awesome for indie creators. Fund My Comics is newest on the block. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, that part of that is also that splintering effect. It used to just be Kickstarter was the only game in town that was like trustworthy. Now there's also BackerKit, which a lot of games and 5e books and things are on BackerKit now. And so now it's like one more thing. I do sometimes feel that my job is monitoring my Kickstarters because I've Kickstarted so many, and then they all can send you mailing list materials for eternity. And it's like really in the guts of Kickstarter to go in and turn it off per project. Plus I don't want to miss out on projects by people I did like, but I can wake up some days and have, I'm not joking, 25 Kickstarter updates in my inbox. I've largely kicked the habit in the past 6 months, but I did just kickstart this Tracy Bonham, and I also kickstarted a D&D book that I really wanted. Logan has 3 questions. 1, how do I feel about Jonathan Hickman as a writer? I came to Hickman so early in Hickman. I think I may have read his indie stuff first. No, I think I read Fantastic Four and loved it. And then I got all of his indie stuff and I was obsessed. I loved all of his early indie stuff. Nightly News, Transhuman, Red Mask from Mars, Pax Romana. I thought they were brilliant. Even ones that people don't love, I loved all of them. So I thought Hickman's gonna be my guy. And then I was so heavy on the beginning of Avengers, and I even liked Avengers through Infinity. Then after Infinity, I started to see Hickman's tendency to kind of make things so labyrinthine and serpentine that you sometimes just lose the plot and you feel like he's just having people talk at you. And then I started becoming a little bit less enamored. And then I've had a rocky up and down relationship with Hickman in the 12 years that have ensued since then. But of course, I do revere Krakoa and came around on Hawksbox, even though I like Pox way more than I like Hawks. So do I get excited when his latest Marvel project is announced? Yes, and here's why. Hickman's playing for all the chips. He understands the marketing of comics because he's marketing on his own as a comic creator, and he just gets it. He's into that side of the industry. So he's not he's not going to let Marvel market him on some nonsense that's not going to go anywhere. You're not, like, he did that one-shot Doom book with Sanford Green, but even that was in the service of Doom eventually coming into the MCU. You know that if Hickman's going to take a swing, he's going to swing big and hard, and I like that about him. I wish more creators would do that, and we don't get these, like, random one-shots from JMS, although one of them I read this week was really good. But yeah, I get excited about Hickman because I think announcements about Hickman books connote importance, and I like important comic books. Do I think he always lives up to the hype? No, and I kind of retroactively covered that. Always love a good actual Q&A in the Q&A. Oh, phenomenally. See, giving me an endorsement for reading orders. Love that. Teaser Krisis. Why? What did I tease? Who did I tease? I'm not a tease. I would never. Okay, Lance J. McNair. If I could write for any superhero title, which would it be? I'd probably choose Deadpool, says Lance. It's tricky because the things I want to happen for popular titles are not necessarily the things that ought to happen on popular titles. And we've never seen me write a comic book, so we don't know how my style would be. You know, it's really funny. I was catching up on the rest of Avengers Academy that I'd missed by Anthony Oliveira, which I love and we'll talk about today. And he wrote this one-shot Daredevil issue that was like the best Daredevil writing I've read in so long. And I thought, of course, he's like a 17th century classic scholar. He knows everything about, you know, the Bible, Catholicism. Of course, he's going to write a good Daredevil, right? But I don't think when he first burst onto the scene in comics, we thought he was going to write Daredevil, because he was writing these kind of funny, kind of younger characters, and he's great for those younger character voices. But it turns out maybe he'd be great at writing Daredevil, you know? And so I think about that and how sometimes even writers that we love who've been writing things forever, we don't really know the thing they'd be great at until they do it. So I don't know. I mean, would I love to write some kind of mutant nonsense? Sure. I honestly would love to write anything from Classic Image, any kind of revival from Classic Image, the way they revived stuff from time to time, like Joe Keating did Glory and other kind of one-off revivals, because I have a real affection for those characters. And I think one of my frustrations with early Image is it was so slow moving that, because of all the delays and everything, that I never thought we got the story we deserved with a lot of really cool characters. So I have a particular affection for that. But I would love to just do writing. I mean, I really thought that I would do more fiction writing in my life and less nonfiction writing, and my life kind of just turned out the way that it has. I have written a book. It's not published. It's in editing because I decided it was good. It was good to write a book. I encourage everybody to write a book. I did National Novel Writing Month. Honestly, any month can be your National Novel Writing Month. Just start writing 500 words a day. You'll have a book eventually. So I don't know. I don't know if I would ever actually really want to be in the cosmic treadmill that is writing monthly comics, but it would be fun just to do it once. TaylorMade looking fantastic. Krisis, thank you. As we know, flattery gets you everywhere on this channel. Thanks for the wonderful stream. Thank you for being here. Like, I love Batman Dark Patterns. It's my number 3 book. I really liked Dan Waters. I discovered him on Lucifer, which was, I hated it to begin with. It was part of that 2018 Sandman Universe relaunch. And then as I got deeper and deeper, I just loved it more and more. I think he's got such a cool, messed up view of the world. And I like when he does messed up, and I don't like when he tries to be normcore. Like, I feel like he's way too normal on Nightwing. I'm not interested. He had that indie book about a house that was also a kaiju and walked around. I hated that. So, but at least it was weird. I respected the weird. It just was not my kind of comic books. But I generally like him. I will absolutely pick up any Dan Waters. I think he's somebody who I believe has a very distinct perspective on characters. I don't always buy that perspective that he has, but I think he comes in not just to complete the assignment. I think he comes in and he takes the assignment because he's got something interesting to say. Okay. Oh my gosh, you all keep talking. And I love that. Translated 5 issues this week and had a little test PDF for the trade paperback to search for mistakes. Now I'm thinking about Kickstarter for some reason when I usually pay for the 4 issues out of my pocket. Well, the thing with Kickstarter is you don't want to go to Kickstarter before you have established an audience. I would say, this is marketing hat. You need an email list before you go on Kickstarter, and you need good social following, but social following only counts so much. You know, you're only getting like 1% clicks, maybe click through on social, unless it's something that people specifically followed you to see and to do. You need to build up an email list. I would never go onto Kickstarter before I had an email list of at least 1,000 addresses, because even from the email list, even if you hit them 3 times over the course of the Kickstarter and you get 2% click through, which would be pretty decent, right? You would only be getting, what is that? 60 people in total, and from all 3 sends of the email, and then how many of them will actually convert on Kickstarter. So yeah, I think a lot of the mistake that a lot of people make is they promote Kickstarter first and then do all the social advertising, but they have no list of their own. Even if they have huge fans of their material, they don't like bring their own audience. And then they're like, I'm only going to need 500 people to fund this, and then they don't get them, even though they know they have 500 fans. That was a problem I had when I started my Patreon. I should have pumped an email list for like 6 months more before I started my Patreon. I had such high hopes. I thought everybody who reads Crushing Krisis was going to support it, and I was going to like quit, be independently wealthy because so many people read Crushing Krisis. And then I had like 5 supporters the first month, and some of them are still around, and I'm so grateful for them because they literally have kept the site alive. I, in retrospect, should have worked on my email list for like 6 months first and then announced it to the email list. William Lee saying, good afternoon. I'm gonna let the page rest and turn from the corners reader, talking about Jarn Powell's question about not getting your fingerprints on the pages. Okay, wow. Well, everybody is still talking, but we are now 10 minutes over when I said I would be, which, to be fair, this is always when the actual issues start. So we are going to say that might be the end of AMAing, and we're going to take off the banner and take off the comment. And we are going to go into this week's comics because there's a lot of comics to talk about. And of course, I will still catch you in between the comics, but I have to keep, of course, total focus on talking about the comics while I'm talking about them so that we can get through. And I have a couple little surprises today. So we'll see when we see what we see. Hopefully, I hope I didn't make these too small. Okay, no, I didn't. Here we go. Perfect. Now let me bring up the credits. Actually, we're going to start with a surprise. Let me just get everything together. So if you've not been here for the stream yet, welcome. And if you have, you know how this goes. I have a minute to talk about every comic, except for when I go over the minute and no one can stop me. But the goal is to talk about every comic for the minute. I'll credit the team and I'll give you an honest reaction that tries to do what I coined on my secret show last week as the critical triangle. My thoughts on it, how I think other people might receive it, and also how it is constructed as a piece of art in this medium. And here, I'm really excited about this. Remember a couple weeks ago, I said, you know what? There's a comic I really want to read, and I'm going to reach out to the creator and say, look, I've got a show. It usually gets a few thousand views. Would you let me read a comp of your comic because it's not available digitally? Well, guess what, Crushers? I got 2 issues to read of Rockabilly Vampiro Apocalypse. You can see at the bottom, I didn't steal it from anybody. That's their watermark, so I don't like go and pirate it and put it on torrents or whatever, which I would never do. But that's why it's watermarked at the bottom. There's literally a review copy. So my response to seeing this week after week when we in the previews was, if it's anything as entertaining as these high camp painted covers, and it's about vampires and somebody with a guitar who's that's an axe, I'm going to love this. Well, let's start the timer and see if I loved it. So the thing that I didn't know about this is Vampiro is actually a wrestler. Bunk, where are you? Vampiro is a wrestler. School me. And so this is actually started out as like, can we do a comic about that wrestler? But it turned into its own universe and its own character. And the thing that I need you to know, it is absolutely as camp as the cover. And even though the interiors don't match the covers, the interiors are, if I say so, kind of great. Artist and colorist El Terrifico Dr. Napalm is got like a little bit of an Allreds vibe going, if I dare say. And this, I love the setup of the comic from writer Michael Kingston, who's written a lot of wrestling comics. He has this super fan, much like me with Tracy Bonham, who has been trying to find this rockabilly guitar player who people say is better than Hendrix and makes these uncredited, unbilled appearances, but he's been billed at this for maybe coming to this one show. And so he basically blows all of his savings to see him at this one show. And it turns out the guy is a vampire, but he just wants to get him on his podcast. It was just like so funny and human. And I thought it was just going to be like a jokey book, but then there was like all this awesome vampire action after that. And you know me, like I love heaven and hell. I love angels and devils. I love vampires. So they're, vampires, he's fighting the apocalypse. It turns out that there's this kind of like, AI Elon Musky character who's one of the horsemen. Well, I won't spoil it, but I already said part of the word, but you know where I was going. So they've got to fight him. Then there's a biker gang of nuns who are like vampire slayers. It could not be more up my alley. And I feel confident saying to you that A, it totally fulfills the promise of the campy covers 100%. And B, even though the cover's a little bit of a bait and switch because clearly the whole comic's not going to be painted in that style, this interior art is awesome. It's really good. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is like a low budget indie comic. It feels like a headlining comic. So it's only available physically right now. It looks like they used to do digital distribution, but they don't right now. So you can pre-order it from your comic book store. It is still in stock at Diamond. It is called Rockabilly, Vampiro, Apocalypse. And you know I'm always going to be real with you. I'm not going to say all this nice stuff just because somebody gave me one free comp copy. Although I am always going to disclose if I get a free comp copy. This was everything that I wanted it to be, and I loved it so much. So I don't think I'm gonna get regular comp copies. I don't think so. They gave me the first couple of issues, but it's ongoing. So am I gonna have to like start a pull list? I don't need physical things in this house, which I know sounds funny because you see the shelf buying. I don't need more. I don't need ephemeral single floppy physical things in this house. So I really am hoping they figure out some digital distribution because I need to keep reading it. Okay, so now we come to another surprise. It just so happened I always do my recap reads at the beginning of the alphabet, but it turns out the first one in the alphabet was something else that I got a comp for, because this is by this comic company is called Battle Quest Comics. They're at battlequestcomics.com. And I saw this frankly amazing cover in previews, and two and two got put together in my brain. I said, hold on. I'm pretty sure I was just talking to somebody on the FML Discord who works for Battle Quest. So I reached out literally 2 hours before the show. I was just starting to like make my PDFs and my plan. And their marketing person was like, oh yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you. So I got to sit down and read the first issue. And then this is issue number 2. It's actually the first alphabetical book out this week. It was going to be even before 2000 AD because it's 27, which is alphabetically before 2000. So this is the first book of the week. I did get a comp copy. So let's set the clock. This book is a lot of fun. It takes a trope that I am not always in on, and it twists it in a way that makes me in on it. It's written by Justin Zimmerman, art by Russell Brown, colors by Fran Gamboa, and really good letters. I have to call out the amazing letters by Thomas Marr. And the whole theme of this book is that it's the apocalypse been come and gone. Giant monsters have eaten the earth. There's maybe one person left on earth, maybe a couple, and he wakes up in his little stasis pod inside of his mech, and he has still got to take care of the remaining kaiju on the earth, or else earth is just going to fall apart eventually. And if there's any hope for any kind of life to reestablish it on earth, he's got to fight them. But he's totally confused. He's totally not with it. And so he's got this very snarky robot who floats around in the inside of the AI talking to him. And it's got such a great witty back and forth between the two of them as he's trying to like jog his memories, and the robot is basically gently mocking him to try to prod him into remembering things. The lettering effects are so good to keep a lot of talk clear. The art is fantastic. Like the colors from Fran Gamboa are so good, so big, so bold. The monsters are big and scary and just a little bit funny too. It takes the kaiju thing that I'm not typically into, and because it wrapped an apocalypse thing around it, and then it's also got this like human robot team up thing in the middle of it, very Luke and C-3PO, that hooked me in. And so even though kaiju is not my normal thing, I wound up really liking it. I will say, issue 2, its final twist felt like a twist on a twist on a twist. Like I felt super twisted. You know me though, I like a status quo. So I kind of was like, well, can't we just I just got into this whole monster thing. And they kind of added one layer on top of that, but that's comics. You got to move fast. You got to break stuff. So it's not that it was bad. It was just like the last page reveal. I was like, oh, I thought we were just doing monsters, but we're also doing something else, which honestly for most people, probably a value add. I'm just somebody who's like laser focused. So I absolutely love this. Right now they do sell comics on their site, battlequestcomics.com. I don't know if they sell digital on their site, but I know they are working on digital distribution because I asked. So I will keep you updated. But if all that sounds good, and if this art looks cool to you, I will say this art is extremely representative. The cover is representative. I think the cover is by the interior artists. I don't see a separate credit for the cover. No, it's not. I lied. But I don't know who the cover is by. But honestly, the interior is not that far off. And again, I have to just compliment colors from Fran Gamboa and also the flatters, JC Rose and Rokio Kantaros, and also the letters. So I did get that comped. I'm really happy I got it though, because I super liked it. Okay. 2000 AD, as we know, used to be my reward every week, but it stopped feeling rewarding, so I'm not pulling it anymore, but it's still out. So now we get to talk about Absolute Superman, which I believe this fell out of my top 10 this week. What is going on here? Jason Aaron, what have you done? This is by Jason Aaron, of course, with art from Rafa Sandoval, colors from Ulysses Zariola, and letters from Becca Carey. Here's the thing. I love Rafa Sandoval. I love pages like this, the drama, right? And this issue, I think, was smart because it intercut Krypton falling apart with some present day action on Earth, which is good. I was afraid about just going to Krypton, and it was going to feel. I hate when books do that back and forth. One origin issue, one present day issue, like Greg Rucka's Wonder Woman from 2016. Hate that. But this had so much crowd stuff in it, so many big scenes, hordes of people, people fleeing, people being saved, people falling to their deaths. I don't think Rafa Sandoval, who I love, is the best artist for that. I often lost the geography on these pages. It felt like he was so intent on showing us the teeming hordes that I started to lose what was actually happening with the teeming hordes. I kind of understand what's happening on this page, but this guy who's floating above them in the first panel and then floating above them in the second panel has no relationship to the stairway in the third panel. There's nobody, none of these guards who have shields are in the third panel on the stairway. And then it looks like they're maybe at the top or bottom of the stairway at the beginning of the last panel. But that lack of relationship to me kept happening in these crowd scenes. Also, we've spent so much time with Lois Lane on Earth so far, and then she was totally absent from this issue. In a way, I liked it because I wanted to spend more time with Cal, and I feel like we got to know him better. But the thing he was trying to do felt kind of hard to touch. Like, he was angry and chasing one person, but because Lois has been our perspective character for several characters right now, I felt like I was kind of held back, even though I'd been so excited to be closer to him. So I think it's still this is still an amazing comic book. I'm saying these critiques about like a comic that to me is still like a 4 out of 5 comic book, but it's those little things. And you might say crowd scene, I don't care about the geography of crowd scenes. I don't care. Like, that's fine. That's why I try to describe this stuff objectively. For me, that's the difference between a comic that's like a perfect 5 and a 4, right? A perfect 5 is seamless. I never worry about the geography. I always feel like I understand the character's motivation. A 4 is still an amazing comic, and I might have some questions. Speaking of a comic that's not amazing, though, I've got to go in on this last issue of John Ridley's Action Comics. This was horrifically bad. It was by John Ridley writing, Inaki Miranda, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go in on your art. Colors from Eva de la Cruz, you get a pass, and letters from Dave Sharp. I didn't even really like the letters that much. Here's the problem. A, there's no plot. There's just no plot. Superman literally just has a conversation again, which I'm not saying Superman can't resolve things by talking, but these new villains that we invented that are on the receiving end of this energy being siphoned off from Earth's villains, they have no perspective. They're just villains to be villains. So seeing a 2-page conversation with them is not the same as seeing a 2-page conversation with Parasite or Lex Luthor or Brainiac, because they have no weight at all. They no weight on the page. Then Superman gets like really nasty with them really quick, and he like choke slams one of them, which to me is not like, I don't think of choke slam as Superman's first move apart from Injustice. And here's the choke slam, but also just pages of, I thought I'd saved this page already because these 2 pages are so similar to one another in layout and in content that I couldn't even figure out which one I had saved already. And so I saved it again. And then I later realized that they were 2 different pages. I think John Ridley, I mean, I don't know how we can call him a superstar if he's turning in writing of this low caliber on Superman. And this art, I do appreciate some of the layouts. I mean, when you're stuck with this many talking pages in a row, to just do some little things like this box and then another box that gets in closer, but the hand kind of pops out of the box to give you a little bit of dynamic motion. I mean, you've got to do something. But honestly, this was just an utter failure. The resolve of it didn't even totally make sense. It kind of like took us back to the mystery of issue number 1, which I frankly didn't even care about anymore. It just was a really bad comic book. I will warn you, the first beginning of the alphabet was rough this week. Okay. So just strap on and strap in. Okay. Alien Paradiso. I can't believe I'm still pulling this. I'm only pulling this because I'm a Marvel zombie. This also was incredibly terrible. I don't know if I need a minute to tell you that, but I'll take it anyway. It's written by Steve Fox. It's art by Edgar Salazar, inks by Victor Novel, colors by Carlos Lopez, and letters by Clayton Klaus with xenomorph work from Peter Nguyen. Here's the thing. I've been asking for 4 issues. Can we please get out of this totally boring federal marshals, intergalactic marshals as the story, and focus on the people that are actually in the resort? So we finally focused on them, but like they barely had personalities. They didn't have any names. I felt the arc was kind of awkward. Like their heads don't quite look right on their necks and their eyes don't quite look right in their face. And then none of the super bloody action, I didn't even take 2 pages. None of the super bloody action like tracked at all. It was hard to figure out. Like we kept seeing people kind of isolated. Like one of them jumps in this pool full of blood. I was like, jumped from where? Jumped why? Where was the alien that was chasing them? It was just really hard to follow. So I got the thing I was asking for. It turned out that was bad too. I might not keep buying Aliens comics, which is weird because Aliens is one of my favorite film franchises and I should really like these. But I just think in comics, Marvel seems to think all we want to see is just heads being ripped out and like spines dangling. I want to see clever protagonists that I can root for and against, and nobody in this comic felt clever. And so then it just becomes reading a comic to see people be eviscerated, which I don't need to spend time and money on. But again, maybe you don't care about how their heads sit on their necks. Maybe that sounds fun to you. Awesome. Okay, all new Venom. Again, remember, I said I had a tough time at the beginning of the alphabet. This is written by Al Ewing, art by Carlos Gomez, who I'm really starting to love. Colors from Rag D'Armata, who I always love. Letters by Clayton Cowell. Here's the thing. Last issue, you heard me really say that I thought this book had turned a corner, and I really loved it because it got this all-new Venom in action. We got to follow them and see what was interesting about them. There's no fun having a mystery about a character that we haven't spent time with or aren't close to or don't have any attraction to. This comic stepped away from that mystery again, and so again, I couldn't understand why were we here. There was this incredibly long scene of Flash Thompson, who I love, talking to like the disembodied symbiote of Toxin, who just is like this floating head who's having a whole conversation with him. It was horrible. Like, it was campy, and Al Ewing knew it was campy, but I didn't need that scene, not because I didn't need it for narrative purposes, but it assumed that I knew so much about symbiotes and Toxin and everything that it didn't bring anything compelling in the moment to it. Then we got a little bit of Venom, and again, as soon as Carlos Gomez gets this character on the page, the art gets friggin' wild. I love this. Madame Mask shoots a MODOK bullet, and so then MODOK is expanding from his pin particles in all new Venom's head. Love that. So there was stuff I enjoyed in it, but we lingered so long on this, like, who's in the suit. I'm really happy because apparently that's going to get revealed next issue. I just think the mystery aspect of it has been bungled, and Al Ewing has a very fun character here, and I'm really looking forward to the book just focusing on this fun character. I hope starting to focus on him or her, we don't know, or they, in issue 5 and beyond is enough to that people didn't all drop this book, because I really only liked last issue 3. Now we come to The Amazing Spider-Man issue 69. It's the second to last issue of this run before Joe Kelly relaunches it. Again, I had problems with the beginning of the alphabet. Things will get kinder and nicer from here. This is by Joe Kelly, finally back after Justina Ireland has been writing several issues, with art from Ed McGuinness, inks from Mark Farmer, colors from Marcio Menez, and letters from Joe Caramagna. Spider-Man was dead for most of the issue, and so it's just about this one child of Sidorak finally deciding she's sad because Spider-Man seemed pretty cool, and now he's dead. Meanwhile, one of the other sons of Sidorak, who looks just like Mr. Sinister, enough that it confused me, fights Sidorak, who just sits in a chair, and I absolutely could not follow the art at all in this fight that they were having or what was happening. But then at the end, she brings Spider-Man back. Spoilers. I was so into this plot when it started, but I just don't understand the resistance to using Spider-Man in the Spider-Man comic. Now we come to Aquaman. Okay, now we get to breathe a little bit. I mean, I still didn't like this that much, but it was better than those last two. So this is Aquaman by Jeremy Adams, art by John Timms, colors by Rex Locust, letters by Dave Sharp. Aquaman is abandoned in this portal galaxy that he's fallen into. It's a world, it's a planet, but what planet is it? How does it work? We don't know. And so he's just trying to find his way through it. But in it, there's this new force, the force of the blue. And he's got a connection to the blue because he's got Mera's powers right now because of all the power swapping from absolute power. Oh, I never started the clock. So he's like well equipped to control the blue and interact with the blue, right? So, but this kind of doesn't have any conflict in it. They're basically just walking through the blue and talking a lot about the blue. And I get really tweaked when DC has one concept that really works, like the Green or Green Lanterns, and then they have to franchise it. I think we could be talking about the power and the effectiveness of water in bringing life without making it the blue to go along with the red and the green and the gray. And then at the end of the issue, it kind of just feels like Aquaman gets captured again. I don't think that every character has to have a 100% agency in every story. It's fun to see people not have agency. That helps us root for them sometimes. We're going to get to a comic like that in a little while. But I think for a character like Aquaman, he's on his back foot. He doesn't have agency. He gets recaptured after all the other things he doesn't have agency with, after being captured last issue. And I just don't understand what the attraction is. Now, I have at this point grown to trust Jeremy Adams to a degree. So, and I don't think this was a bad comic book. I'm just waiting for it to be about what it's about. There's this big tease on the cover, and then the solicits that like, is Aquaman Darkseid, or is he somehow connected to Darkseid? I'm sorry for people who learned about him from the cartoons rather than just having to sound it out from comic books. Is Aquaman Darkseid? Like, that to me is a really interesting question. I don't think the book is bearing that out yet. I did not read Armory Wars from Boom. Good Apollo, I'm beginning Star 4 Volume 2. It's got to be one of the longer titles we're going to have today. I did not read Assassin's Creed Mirage from Dark Horse because it is from a video game, which I do not play. Although some people say the comics have been pretty good. Maybe one day I'll check in. Now we get to Assorted Krisis events. No, they didn't ask me if they could license my name. I'm joking. I should be asking DC, but that's why I spell it with a K. This was the big book of the week because it's by Dennis Camp, who is the hotness right now in comics, of course, writing Ultimates with art from Eric Zawadzki, colors from Jordi Belair, who of course we love, and letters from Hassan Otsman Elio. This got a great concept, which is basically like a classic DC crisis is happening in the real world to regular people in New York. And there's no superheroes. There's just a crisis. So how would normal people deal with this idea of the earth just opening up and swallowing people, of people phasing in and out of time, right? That's a great concept. And we get this very relatable protagonist who just is trying to get to work every day and is always getting in the way of her. It layers on top of this idea that capitalism marches on in an apocalypse, which is a very Dennis Camp kind of theme. And so they're still shooting movies outside her apartment in Brooklyn or wherever. And they're using the apocalypse as a backdrop, but their movies also about the apocalypse. And so she keeps walking out of her house and not being able to tell if she's in a movie or if she's in a new, fresh apocalypse. That's very interesting. It's very Grant Morrison, right? The idea that fiction in the universe is embodying the same theme of the universe's fiction, and that the character themselves is starting to be unable to tell the difference between the two. That's very interesting. For me, the thing that failed to grab me is the whole book, which was beautiful, by the way. Zawadzki's art, really, really lovely. I love the knocked back colors from Jordi Belair. Like, there's no shininess. There's a little bit of reflection here, but this is a very knocked back, subtle palette. It always makes me think of somebody like Matt Hollingsworth coloring David Aja on Hawkeye. This is my favorite kind of palette in comics, actually. I don't like modern, bright, glossy colors, except for on like Deadpool. So I love this. But I got to the end of the issue, and I understand that these are going to be one-shot stories, so it's not one continuous story. So it's not like I was waiting for the big story to be revealed, but it felt like the whole issue was just that. It was this woman stuck between Camp's fictionalized reality of crisis events and the movies fictionalizing crisis events outside of her house. And at a point, can you no longer tell the difference between fiction and reality, which honestly is pretty cool. And I'd love to read an essay about it. As a comic book, I found it pretty boring. I really liked the art, and I was turning pages thinking that we were like gonna get somewhere. Again, not just a big reveal, because this is not a superhero comic, and that's not the point of it. And it just ended. And I know that that's part of what Camp is doing. Some things are just going to end. Sometimes people are just going to die. This is the crisis events in the real world, and they're assorted. It's a grab bag. For me, I have a lot of trouble saying whether I would pick up a second issue. I think I will, only because the second issue and the difference of what that one-shot story is compared to the story might really reveal to me something about what this comic is. But this is right on the drop line for me. It was a great idea, but I'd rather read your essay than spend $5 on your comic book. Now we're going to go through Marvel's digital books. You know, some of these books only take me a minute to read. So I think for these 3 astonishing digital books, I'm going to try to do all 3 of them in a minute. I mean, no disrespect to their creators, but they literally take me sometimes a minute and 40 seconds to read. So I don't know if we need to talk about them for a minute. So Astonishing Avengers, written by Steve Orlando, art by Francesco Archidiacono, colors from Carlos Lopez, letters by Travis Lanham, finished up this arc where this Avengers team that for some reason has Elektra is fighting some kind of giant ice guy inside of a ship that he turned into his own icy fantasy world. It really relies heavily on this whole Elektra has psychic powers, which I am over and done with. I think this is failing its mission of showing off a really wide array of Avengers that are not getting shown off in the main title, because we have plenty of Elektra in multiple titles right now. Then we come to Astonishing Spider-Man by Scott Aukerman, Salva Espin, and Cici de la Cruz. This has Peter Parker hanging out with Aunt May, and it had a moment in it that I hated so much that I actually closed the laptop and had to breathe for a couple of seconds. Peter and Aunt May are at an art museum, and Aunt May is like, I majored in art history, which I'm not a Spider-Man continuity person. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. That's not my complaint here. And then Peter says, why didn't you just go get a job in art history then? Oh, because you adopted me. I'm sorry. Does Peter think that art history jobs grow on trees right now? That just took me so far out of the story that A, he had forgotten that Aunt May was an art history major, but that B, he's like, well, then why aren't you working in your career in art history, May? I just don't understand what this comic book is doing. You're not going to tell a good story about Spider-Man being romantic or having meaningful personal moments with Aunt May in your digital comic. We want to see 100 different spiders. And, that took 2 minutes, I guess. Well, I don't have much to say about this X-Men issue, so we'll just let the clock go over. This was Astonishing X-Men. We're back to the original arc that this was presenting, which unfortunately is written by Alex Packnadel, who I'm discovering I do not like very much. Banshee and Husk talk. Okay, so now we're on to Avengers Academy, which does get its own minute, because not only did I love this issue, but I also caught up on all the issues I'd missed. This is by Anthony Oliveira, art by Bailey Rosalind, colors from KJ Diaz, and letters from Ariana Maher. This is doing this thing where all of the Avengers Academy kids, which are like 12 or 14 now, have been sent around time and space in pairs, and they're trying to kind of fix where they are to get back to where they were. This issue follows Escapade and what is her name? Bloodline, Blade's daughter. I think Bailey Rosalind, it's really fun to see artists who really stick with these digital comics. I think Bailey Rosalind has really come along, some from what we saw earlier from them. Some of this art is just gorgeous. This is all set in Asgard. It's really good, and it really made me feel like Bloodline and Escapade have developed as characters. I really didn't like Escapade in her X-Men comics. I wasn't a fan of Bloodline's original comic, but here in Avengers Academy, it feels like they've developed into real characters, and I understand why they say what they say and why they do what they do. The downside for me in this title is so great and pleasing because the cast is amazing, and I love having the cast together, bumping off against one another, and it seems like we're going to have to go through several weeks of them being separated into 2s and 3s before we get back to them being together, but the upside is it comes out every week, and it's just on Marvel Unlimited. So this was not my favorite issue of this. I would say the mid-teens through the 20s of this was just 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Definitely check it out on Marvel Unlimited. It is a very queer comic, but it is not just a comic for queer people about people being queer. It's a great superhero comic, and I really love it. Honestly, it is just a hair outside of my top 10. If this had been a 5 out of 5 issue, this would have been in my top 10 this week. That is how much I love Avengers Academy. I'm not reading Babs by Ahoy Comics. I am, however, reading Batman and Robin from DC Comics. And Batman and Robin is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with art from Javi Fernandez, colors from Marcelo Mayolo, and letters by Steve Wands. You've heard me be a little hard on this because I feel like it's had Damian be a little bit over-emotional and not as smart as I'm used to him being. And it felt like we were trying to produce a new trauma response for Damian so we can play him as more emotional. I think that settled down a little bit in this issue, and the thing that this issue did really well is it made me feel like both Damian and Batman were in realistic peril. Damian, because he's getting so hot-headed in a different way than normal that he just wants to do this thing on his own without Batman. Batman, because he's still infected with this hallucinogen from the last issue, and so he's having trouble separating what's really happening to voices in his head. I think that makes it really fun, and it's a good use of a Batman and Robin comic because they're slightly at odds with each other, but they're not fighting each other. They're just not quite on the same team, and if they would actually work together, they would be in less peril. I think that's good plotting. So after a couple of issues that I didn't feel as strongly about, after a really stellar opening to this arc, this 6th part of this Memento arc really got me, and honestly, I am very engaged with the mystery of who this killer is. Are they a killer from 100 years ago Gotham? Are they a copycat killer from 20 years ago London, or are they a ghost? Like, it's really, and also there were some like seriously scary panels in here, especially with Scarecrow, and I really liked it. So I'm really hoping that Philip Kennedy Johnson doesn't make this another trauma is great. Every one of my books is about trauma comics, like he does seemingly with everything, because I think the mystery here is way more interesting than the trauma aspect. Also, there's just this really nice downtime scene with Damian and Bruce, which I know I could just go on Webtoon and read the Wayne Family Adventures if I want all downtime all the time. But this scene of Damian just like drawing, sitting of the sideways in this easy chair, you all know what I was going to say. then I just needed that moment with them in a Batman and Robin book. And I love the like recriminating glare from Damian. I really think Javi Fernandez did a stellar job on the art in this issue. But oh boy, now we get to talk about Batman Dark Counters. Y'all, you have to understand that I don't even like Batman that much. So when I tell you this is my third favorite book of 2025 so far and one of the best Batman comics I've ever read, are you hearing that? I don't get that excited. This ain't the X-Men. It is by Dan Watters with art from Hayden Sherman, colors from Triona Farrell, and letters from Frank Sedgwick. So this starts a new arc. You don't have to have read 1 through 3, but go and read them because they're frigging fantastic. But this, for Hayden Sherman, we gotta just talk about this gentleman for a second. The art in this, so it's about this tower. We're playing with architecture. So Sherman is using all these nested shapes within shapes to give us glimpses of the architecture to show how it nests within itself. It gets a little wild on a couple of pages in a way that I don't know is totally motivated, but the layouts, the fact that they are currently doing 3 comics that are out right now and delivering art of this quality, and just, I love this. This person opening the chains of their door and the door that's right beside their hand kind of being the panel divide, and the way they look awful and emaciated that you almost can't tell if they're like a zombie or just an old lady. And then this little inset panel of Batman saying, "Where did you take her?" as the door is getting closed in his face. I love this. Like, this is so inventive, so cool. And I love that he's basically storming this decrepit tower that's marked for demolition, but some of the people don't want to move out. And so they banded together to defend it, not only from Batman, but from anybody who's trying to excavate them. And also maybe any police that are coming there to look into any murders in a very surprising and interesting way. How is this team so good? How is every issue of this so stellar? How does Dan Watters just know how to write such great Batman? It's only a matter of time before we see him on an ongoing Batman title. This is 12 issues. This is issue 4 of 12. As an audition, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody crush it so far. Hey, if Hayden Sherman doesn't get nominated for an Eisner this year, we're going to riot. They are currently drawing this and Absolute Wonder Woman and some other book by Zach Thompson, all of which are like best in comics. And let's not overlook Triona Farrell and knowing when to really pump up the vibrancy of some things. This red, we don't see that throughout the issue. Like on this page, what's really bold and colorful on this page, I love this back-to-back heads of Gordon and Batman and how they kind of merge together, and Batman's got the cooler colors on one side, and then Gordon has the bright pink, which is the reflection of the light from the police siren on the other side. Just really smart coloring. Everything about this is smart. Even the lettering is smart, because the lettering has to respect how wild the layouts are, and lettering is part of what helps lead your eye. So the fact that Frank Sedgwick's lettering like works with these crazy layouts to pull your eye through across down the page, such that all of these wild page layouts, and there's some that I didn't even take to show you that were even wild in there. The fact that you know how to read them, that not only speaks to the talent of the artist, but the talent of the letterer. You can't read a Batman comic book better than this in 2025 right now. I can't recommend it anymore. I hope this is coming through. All right, we're going to do a couple more, and then we're going to catch up in the chat. This is Beastly Buddies. It's actually possibly the last issue of Beastly Buddies right now, which is this very cute little comic from Steve Fox and Armand Bodnar on art with colors from KJTS and letters from VC's Joe Sabino. That's basically just looking at what if Werewolf by Night was just this little dude, and what if he was traveling all around the world with Man-Thing because they were trying to get out of a bad Airbnb contract and find somewhere else to live. You know, I kind of wish this was in continuity, because it's not because I'm just such a nerd and I need everything to be in continuity, but I really like the Elsa Bloodstone. I like the wisecracking version of Werewolf by Night that never turns back to his human form, and I like this version of Man-Thing, who is like, what are his motivations here? He's just along for the ride. He like does his power. Sometimes it's very Rocket and Groot, but it feels distinct from Rocket and Groot in a way that's really funny. This is another one of these free Marvel Unlimited comics. I honestly got a solid chuckle out of a lot of these issues. I don't know who this is for, or if they got anybody new onto Marvel Unlimited with it, but you know what? It made me happy, and sometimes that's all you can ask for a comic book to do. And now let's talk about Black Lightning. Black Lightning, of course, written by Brandon Thomas. This is the final issue with art from Fico Ossio, colors from Ulysses Ariola, and letters from Lucas Gattoni. I probably liked this the best out of all the issues of the series. And the reason why is it actually put the family in play. I think in a 5-issue limited series, it's really dangerous to keep your lead characters splintered the whole time just in service of trying to give us a big payoff in issue number 5. There's this maxim, I didn't start the time, and I was saying such interesting things, so we'll keep saying them. There's this maxim in fiction, and especially in comics, but also in novels and any kind of fiction or even movies. Start at the interesting part of the story. Like, start at the peak. You don't always have to start at the beginning and explaining how the person was born and how they got their powers and what fight they're in with their dad. It's a rule I have a lot of trouble with because I love things that start at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning. I think this comic made a mistake there. And the reason I say that is because this issue that put the family in play, had them bumping up against each other, had them in action, had them feeling confident. This to me felt like what I signed up for in a Black Lightning comic book, where all the other issues, which kind of was just like, felt like everybody was in training and in therapy and tentative. That was not an exciting 4 issues. It didn't make me happy to have bought the issues. It didn't make me want another arc of this comic book. This issue made me want that. I still think it was a little bit overwritten. I still think the whole kind of mystery here had too many interstitial steps. I think some of the pages lingered a little bit too long on that, but it gave the art a chance to really pop. It really introduced each character and told us what they were about. And then we got to have some fun with them. So you know me, I'm not always about comics that are a beat 'em up, bash 'em up. I don't need every comic to be a fist fight in order for me to enjoy it. I think this comic did need a fist fight, and I did wind up enjoying it. I can't say that it left me super excited for what this is going to roll into in the next Power Company series, nor can I say it really made me very excited about Brandon Thomas's writing, but I'm happy that we got to spend a little bit of time with the Black Lightning family in action, which is, and not only in action, but relating to one another, which is what I'd been wanting the entire time from a character I honestly really love. This is Bronze Faces. We read the first issue earlier this month, and the creators very, very kindly came and left a comment, even though the issue is not for me. Honestly, I think it's a pretty cool concept about this idea of this man's artisanal masks that were taken by the British Museum and displayed there, and how his adopted and actual family are conspiring to stage a heist to get them back. The interior art for me just wasn't strong enough to keep up with that storytelling, but I love the story concept, and if you're not as much of an art stickler as I am, I think you could probably read it if that concept, robbing the British Museum to bring the artifacts back to your, home, kind of reverse Indiana Jones. If that sounds cool to you, you might really dig it. I'm trying to get to the end of the bees. So this budding crisis, if it says crisis, I'm going to read it. And this is on Comixology. It wasn't even on League of Comic Book Geeks. I just happened to notice it on Comixology. And so I checked it out. I kind of love it. Look, it's got this art. It reminds me of kind of the latter issues of Lumberjanes. Everybody's face is like a rectangle with like 2 little cheek slashes. If you can't do this kind of art, then you can't do this kind of art, and I understand. It's written by M.K. Reed. It's art, letters, and design from Jonathan Hill, colors from Ali Drake. I'll tell you about all 3 issues since we haven't talked about the prior ones. The idea is there's this magical kingdom that has farmed these wish seeds. And if you get a wish seed, you can wish for anything. It's like a genie in a bottle. But there's a limited amount left because the seeds haven't been growing anymore. And so they've decided to disperse an equal amount of wish seeds to every country in the world so that everybody gets their 3 wishes, but also there's like a little bit of like a nuclear detente. I know you've corrected me on that before. Between them to kind of give everybody equal amounts of power. The first issue is so perfectly crafted because it introduces us to a bunch of assholes, honestly, who are getting the seeds, and we're like, we don't want to follow these people, we don't want to see their wishes. And then it kind of shows us how the entire mechanism of distributing these wishes conspires against them to double cross them because they agree they are assholes. I think that was a great introduction of this world. It like told us everything we needed to know. It made me root for those characters. It was like all of the things I needed to be aware of in order to really enjoy this book. Then the next 2 issues kind of hyper focused on just one aspect. So one of them focused on issue 2, the academy that kind of monitors these wishes and distributes them, and how there's going to be no jobs soon because the wishes are almost gone. And then this one focused on 3 regular people who really think maybe there's one more of these wish seeds out there, or maybe a whole plant. And is it actually very profitable to just tell people that they think it's out there? I think for a book that is for free on Comixology, this is a really fun read. It's really well written. It's really dense. I think it reads to me personally like a graphic novel that has been split up into individual issues. I don't feel like each individual issue has as much rising and falling action, so much as it just feels like they're conversations and scenes and moments in time that in the scope of a graphic novel would read just fine. And they actually are titled as chapters in each one. So it makes me really feel like they designed this as a graphic novel and then it got split up into individual issues. I think it's a really fun read. I'm going to keep reading it, even though I felt this issue in particular was a little bit slow because I'm really hooked on that world building aspect and it's really pulled me in. So now we're going to take a break. And while you all get ready to chat with me, the door to my room is not quite closed and I hear it bumping and I don't want the bumping sound to be on microphone. So I'm just going to step off camera just for a second while I'm away. The kids, don't make a mess of the place, kids. I'll be right back. Okay, here we go. And then I almost broke my neck because there's comic book bags everywhere on the floor. Why? Because I walk into this room just to do this, and then I walk out of the room and I walk in to get books, but I never walk into the room to clean, which is something I need to start doing. Okay, you probably have been talking a lot so let's get through it. This is even from before I think we started in the books. Eberron lore is one of my favorites, says Bunkmaster. The Mornland is one of my favorite spaces where each DM can vastly change it based on their own needs and beliefs about the events of the war. I do like the idea of coming in. I like coming in on the tail end of something, coming into a land that just had a war, coming into a land that just got out of the Gilded Age. That's really fun for me, even in comic books. Raging Sloth saying, I'm reading Uncanny X-Men Volume 1 for the first time and watching my reread videos. Oh, that was so fun to do with Tyler and Freya. Any thoughts on doing some of those videos again with Tyler and Freya? We stopped after Dark Phoenix. The thing was, Freya had never read classic X-Men, so Freya wanted to really read it. And I kept telling her it doesn't actually get good until the 160s, which is a true belief that I hold. And sure enough, we got to the end of 137. Or maybe we even got to like 140 because we read to the end of the classic X-Men omnibus. I think that was part of it. Tyler wanted to read his classic X-Men omnibus. Freya wanted to read to the Dark Phoenix saga. And we got there and Freya was like, okay, well, I don't need to read anymore. I kind of get it. I'm like, but you don't, but it's so much better later. I would consider bringing those back with maybe some other viewers, but I also kind of shy away from my brand. I know it makes me go, but my brand being too attached to X-Men because I'm so critical of X-Men. And then the really hardcore X-Men fans would bless them. I love you, hardcore X-Men fans. Then they get angry at me for like not liking X-Men enough. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just talk about all comics. So I don't think it would be fair of me to say that it's ever going to come back, but it would be fun to do more of it. Sure. Did my ears hear Deadpool at first? He might be the last character I write for. Sometimes I confuse Daredevil and Deadpool. Like my mouth works faster than my brain, so who knows? Cyril, yeah, having a really good time reading X-Men now, following Peter's reading order. Phenomenal job. Well, the reading order, I'm very proud of, and it's one of my proudest works. And I talked a little bit about the mechanics of it in that super secret show the other day. Saz Murph, now I'm wondering if Kickstarter has been around in the early 90s. Would Image have existed, or would they gone the crowdfunding route? Well, yeah, I mean, back in the day, the DM kind of was crowdfunding, and they were using it as crowdfunding, right? They were like getting high off that pre-order money. I'm not casting aspersions about how much cocaine they did, probably a lot, but they were using that pre-order money to like focus on their empire. They had some seed money and they had some money of their own, but like they knew that putting a number one, especially number one with a ton of covers, was going to like give them seed money and gets them. I mean, I think the direct market used to work more like Kickstarter, I guess is the thing that I'm trying to say. Bunkman has to be coffin bound with such a crazy out there. Dan Waters with the amazing gritty art from Danny. Yeah, Dan Waters and Danny just have a way about them. They are a really, really good team. Cyril is saying, I'm so excited for the next Power Fantasy. Oh my gosh. So I think I mentioned this last time, but every time Power Fantasy comes out, I go through and I screen grab every single page. And then I have a master PDF that I put together of all of the pages in order of story chronology by year. And every time an issue comes out, I reread that, or I'm going to. I did it for the first time last time, and it read so well. So pardon me, I'm so excited to do the Summer of Love and then read it in that order. Novark's here from the marketing hat. You know, I've worked in corporate communications and marketing and SEO and data analytics. I mean, that's really what my real life has all been in. So I have a lot of opinions about how to do all these things. But the funny thing is, it's hard being a backseat driver. Or no, it's easy being a backseat driver. It's hard when you drive the car. We all have a lot of things to say. Should have been marketed this way. Should have offered this. Should have solicited that way. But when you're the person who's driving the car, and I know that because for the stream, like I should post about it more. I should be making posts about it in Crushing Krisis. Don't have time to do that. No, because I'm driving the bus right now. So it's really, you know, I love to backseat drive, Monday morning quarterback the marketing of stuff. But at the same time, I know that if I was in marketing for one of these comic book companies, it would be a slog. And that's why I really respected talking to that marketing person from Battle Quest who got me that that comic we talked about at the top, because they're doing a really good job. Like their press kit was really well organized. They were like ready to reach out, and they'd already reached out to me once. And when I reached back to them, they like had it ready for me. Like that stuff is hard. It's very hard. Eric Garza loving on Batman Dark Patterns. It is just so good. Oh, Lance McNair, I have to leave for now, but probably tune back in, and we can't wait to see you. William Lee. Oh no, I missed all the tangents. Well, they'll still be there for you. They'll be Novarg. Yeah, I mean, and again, My thing is, I know some people are always going to watch this just because I'm talking about all of Marvel and DC. And that's why I really have made a commitment to, unless the book is like really upsetting me, I will read all of Marvel and DC, because then I get the chance to talk about the stuff that I've talked about that we all have gotten so excited about. Last week, a ton of us had never even read Tin Can Society, and then we all read it and we're in love with it. Nobody had, like, a lot of us had never been on Global Comics before. Now so many of us are on Global Comics reading The Surgeon, right? Which I get to talk about this week. So I like that. I want to talk about all of comic books. So you know what? We're always going to talk about Marvel and DC, but like I feel like I now have done this for a few months, and I know you're all going to show up. Like, you help me do that. You understand, right? Like, when you like this video, which if you haven't, please smash the thumbs down, up, like, subscribe, all the jazz. Because when I show them how many people are watching every week, and I'm like, I talk about every single comic in the industry with equal weight and an equal 60 seconds starting on the clock, that's actually a pretty good pitch to get to talk about more comics that are unavailable digitally, and also push some of them to be digital. So that's really cool. And that's what I want to do, because I just love comics. At the end of the day, as hard as I am on some of these books, I just love comics. Bugmaster B is not familiar with Vampiro, but love Rockabilly though, so it's now on my radar. I think you would really like it. Sazmerv does remember Vampiro, but hasn't seen him in years. Well, again, the comic started out as a Vampiro comic and then went in this other very campy, funny direction. So it's not about Vampiro, but the character is Vampiro, but he's not the wrestler Vampiro, but I still loved it. Okay, Michael Kingston has been writing wrestling comics, the comic Headlock. I remember mentioning this was coming. Wait, did I officially christen us the Crushers? Where it's always being workshopped. There could always be, you could be my Assorted Krisis events. I don't know. I guess that's probably trademarked now. We're always working on it. Super Drop, the only Vampiro I've seen was the Luca Underground. No, that's it. That's the Vampiro we're talking about, where he's a commentator and wrestled one match on the final episode. Here's Battle Quest Comics, who were the authors of that site. Hey, it's Gianni. Hello, friend. This is somebody who I have just recently met. He's got an awesome podcast called Biff Bam Power. He just recently interviewed Brian Michael Bendis. He is also in the FML Discord, which is how I met him. And it turns out he's friends with our friend Dom of X. And so please go check out his podcast. I'll have to put his channel in the Friends of Crushing Krisis strip on the channel, but there's some talk that we're going to get Gianni on a Evergreen show in the next couple of months. So I look forward to arguing with who I assume, based on his name, is my Italian sibling. Okay. Oh, and apparently a ton of you know Gianni already, so I didn't need to give that lovely sales pitch about how wonderful he is. Apparently his leg day is Wednesday, everybody, and now we know. James Abel, Absolute Superman number 5, Explosion issue. The fight for survival on Krypton was done so great, it had me on the edge of a seat. Yeah, there were, even though I criticized the crowd handling a little bit, there were some moments in there that were really gripping with unnamed characters. Like, it's hard to do like a big world is exploding, world is ending thing with characters that we don't even know, who are unnamed, and to get us that invested. And I think it did a terrific job of that. I really, really felt super invested. Gianni loved the way that Aaron modernized and changed the destruction of Krypton. Yeah, I really did love it. And clearly it's a comment on the modern day and climate change and kind of sticking our head in the sand. And I feel like anytime a creator does that, it has the potential to be a little bit eye rolling, like, oh, of course they ignored climate change and that's why. But actually, I thought Aaron did it in a really interesting way. And by aging up Kal-El and letting us spend more time with him observing his parents as adults, as scientists, I think part of what made that really work. The planet literally explodes as society on Krypton explodes and falls into chaos with it. And I think we needed the older Kal and the perspective of him seeing his parents. As somebody who has a kid, you realize they start to get to an age where they stop seeing you as these infallible providers of everything, and they start to see you as slightly rounder people. And you're always going to get rounder and rounder as their life goes on, but they'll never fully probably see you as people the way your friends or peers do. And so I really loved Cal seeing his parents just with that beginning of the turning of the gears of seeing them as people who actually are not all that fallible. And he turns out to be pretty right in the course of the comic. But that to me was really, really interesting. Sorry, I just needed a break from the glasses. Phenomenally, so you can't get a chance to rate Superman or any of the iconic characters and half-ass the story. It really upsets me when that happens. Well, I guess that's probably in relation to that John Ridley. Here's the thing. So many things have been done with those characters that you're always looking for an angle. It's like, what could I write? What story is there to tell with this character at this point? So I do respect that it's not easy. And I don't ever want to make it sound like I think this job is so easy, this job of writing comics, and that I think they should have done better because it's so simple. That is never what I'm trying to say. All new Venom, James said, using MODOK as a bullet, nice touch. Now all new Venom, anti-Venom, sleeper agent. What's next? A new Mania? Probably. I mean, I guess the thing with me with Venom is I always like the characters under the suit. So being held apart from the character under the suit is kind of like keeping me at arm's length. And then the other thing is I also like just Venom in action. Like I come from 90s Venom. I want to see him eat some brains, man. Let's go. Maybe, and I know he's not a bad guy anymore, but I want to see Venom doing stuff. And that's why I tend to like Flash Thompson Venom or Anti-Venom or whatever he is at the time, because I really love the character in the suit and he tends to really be effective when he's in the suit. That's what I want from Venom. I feel like Al Ewing's Venom has just turned into this time thing and now it's this mystery thing and it's keeping me away from those two things that I like the most about Venom. Max Appleman, all new Venom. Why? Max has a new Beetle Bop up. The thumbnail looks different than you're used to because we're trying some things. Max and I talking about marketing. We're just trying some stuff. But it's Dear Prudence, which is from the White Album. So as we all know, I like everybody go and give a listen. He's in the Friends of Crushing Krisis. You should be subscribed to him by now, I would think. And I don't know how much longer he's going to do these Beetle Bops. So if you have a Beatles song that you're dying to hear him interpret, you've got to tell him now in the comments of one of the Beetle Bop. Not here. Go on his video and leave a comment because I don't know how much he might. Who knows? He might do an all Lady Gaga quarter soon. So it's not guaranteed he's going to do all 213-ish Beatles songs. That's up to you, the audience, to compel him to do. I can only twist his arm so far. Okay. Amazing Spider-Man, Doctor Strange was in a few panels, and that was good, but the rest was not so good. James Abel and Aquaman enjoyed the history lesson. Arthur getting captive was somewhat predictable, right? That's where I was too. The last page gave me some Asgard vibe. I would agree with that. James, the Media Master, mystery box books like Venom get on my nerves. I have to pay $3.99 every 2 weeks just for you to tease an identity. It's just really getting on my nerves, and it feels like the team isn't considering us. You know, I really think that's a perspective I need to keep in mind. Sometimes when I feel like I'm not going hard enough or going too hard, we're buying these things and we're waiting for something to happen. And I think the thing is, I love a mystery. Clue is my favorite movie. I love Knives Out. I love a mystery where us as the audience get to participate in the mystery. I think that's fun. It's interactive. It makes us feel like we're inside the story. I don't know that all new Venom is making me feel like I'm participating in the mystery. I'm kind of just like watching and waiting for other people to engage in the mystery. And I think you get at that quite eloquently by saying, well, I mean, getting on your nerves is the most eloquent statement, but I think the way you framed it is eloquent, which is that that's the thing that Mystery Box takes away from us. When you keep the mystery in the box and the mystery box is sealed, we don't get to participate. Right? Okay. Assorted Krisis events. Here's where everybody starts disagreeing with me. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. Are we doing Hung Up by Madonna or no? That's got 4 Minutes to Save the World with Justin Timberlake. Not a favorite of mine. What a great first issue. It's keeping you asking what is going on in an interesting way. I love the art. It's simple with great details. At least we can all agree the art was fantastic. To me, it almost feels like an episode of Doctor Who. We won't know what is actually happening until the end of it. I'm really interested to see what Bunkmaster B had to say. Krisis events feels like the next great W. Maxwell Prince miniseries off the premiere of the brilliant Astro City issue, The Closeness of View. Very disagree about it being so many great and captivating moments, falling into the practical effects hole, the police station, the through line of repairing the clock, loved it all. See, those are all the things I didn't like. So it's just gonna be a comic that's not for me. I will say I'm not alone in this. I was surprised to find I found some people when I went online to talk about it after I read it who were like, so that wasn't very interesting. So I think this is one that's going to divide people. I'm very interested to see the contrast of issue number 2. But yeah, those 3 things were specifically the things I didn't like. So I think this is just you and I being on different wavelengths. Kane feels like the ASM digital writer is very out of touch with reality. I think they're out of touch with Peter Parker, out of touch with reality, out of touch with what we want to read in a 1 minute long digital comic. I think you're out of touch. You're out of touch. That's from our Philadelphia Brethren Hall Notes. Keith, who I don't know if we've said hi to yet today. One of my favorite ongoing gags of the show is the whole who Elektra, why Elektra, what Elektra thing when we get to the Orlando Adventure. And I love Elektra, and I really respect Steve Orlando recently, but I just don't understand what is he trying to accomplish with Elektra. I don't understand. Just don't understand. Okay, Gianni, I agree with Bunkmaster. Loved Assorted Krisis events and can't wait for more stories. I love I hate Ice Cream Man so much. Flames on the side of my face, burning, heaving breaths. So if it's going to go in that direction, I'm going to hate it. And that's just a me thing. So I'll give it one more issue, but I'm not going to keep reading it just to be a hater. Lance, back again. Oh, see, I'm still in the middle of comments and you're back. You were gone and back and I didn't even realize you were back. But taking breaks in between reading. Helen says, not very educational, Helen, but maybe you just hit enter before you meant to. Welcome to the show, Helen. Phenomenal AC. I don't like having 100 different spiders. I feel like it waters down the product. Why would I care about Spider-Man if there's nothing unique about him? Right, but here's the thing. At the point that we have 100 different spiders, maybe let's use them in these digital comics, which are really good at telling quick, short stories that broaden their world, because they're not going to sustain a 100-issue long series. Peter will. So not to say that we don't want more of Peter. He's one of the most famous characters in comics, but it just feels like an opportunity to have him bump up against these other heroes, have team up things. The digital comics subsidize themselves by being on Marvel Unlimited, so you can get away with stuff you can't get away with in other comics. Oh my gosh, you guys are having such a great conversation. I don't want to stop. Logan Wayne, how would you not know that your beloved aunt would rage you had a degree in art history? Did she ever talk to you about her life before you came along? That's the thing. It just felt like it felt like a moment from like the 80s. And even in the 80s, it just didn't feel right. Like nothing about Peter Parker in that digital comic feels right to me. Johnny P, me and you, Bunkmaster Beyond Comics are the certified Denny's camp heads. Well, I love Ultimates. And 20th Century Man is so interesting that I'm still in the middle of reading it. I read one issue and then I reread it and then I like sit with it for weeks because I wasn't reading comics for the months that it actually came out. So I'm really into Dennis Camp. I just think Assorted Krisis events, it sounds like it's going to be kind of anthology and play with themes in a way that are just going to piss me off, but we'll see. We'll see what issue 1 is like, or issue 2 is like. Helen, not necessarily related to any specific book, but I've been slowly getting back to comics and love listening to your takes. Oh, see, so that's not was the beginning of it. She wasn't trying to refute anything. She was trying to say this very lovely thing. Helen, that is so kind of you. Thank you. And if you need any extra takes, I am chock full of them. I have Assorted Krisis takes. Peter, Miles, Venom, and Carnage are enough. The rest can all die off, says the phenomenal AC. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about Batman Dark Patterns. What an amazing panel layout. I felt like I was inside Blood and Towers with Batman. Cruel Angel says Dark Patterns Case 2 begins. Loved the page and panel designs. Thought this was going to be a plain old Scarface story until the last 2 pages. Yeah, how freaky was that? Really, really caught me off guard. Batman Max, Batman Dark Patterns, 5 out of 5. F me up. Casa Finch, hello to you. Can't wait for Dark Patterns trade. Lynch McNair, I love a great Batman book, so I'll check out Dark Patterns in due time. Everybody's loving it. 5th of Jack, this is my favorite style of a Batman story where he's the detective. I didn't know that I needed this in, but I do now. Everybody needed. Hey, Jewish Dragons, who I know as a commenter, I think primarily on Omnidog's Vault. Welcome aboard, my friend. Super job. Dan Waters is a genius. His Archimedes with his coffin-bound partner, Donnie, was great too. Eric Garza, I need absolute Batman Dark Patterns solicited as soon as the mini ends. You know what? I don't buy modern Batman books and I don't buy absolutes, but I would absolutely buy absolute Dark Patterns. We're not talking about Absolute Universe. We're talking about a DC Absolute, one of the giant books. Hayden Sherman, man, there was this great interview with them this week. I forget who did it, but I'm sure I reposted it on my Blue Sky, but it just was all about their art process and all the books they've done and the way that they do use they, them, by the way. I'm not just forgetting what gender they are. And all of the books that they've done along the way. And they had drawn some stuff I had read and I didn't even recognize it as them because their style has changed so much. So cool. Okay. I think we're going to have to get back. Sorry, Black Lightning agreed. Stopped after issue 1. The family seems a little too trapped in the family dynamic, unlike the best arcs of Fantastic Four. Kind of thought the same about the show. Very interesting. So it's not just me. Ooh, sorry if there's more ads than usual. I gave YouTube the ability to insert ads, but some people manually control that in live streams. I don't, because God knows I haven't plenty enough that I'm doing here. So I'm sorry if you're just getting hammering on them. And Lance McNair, I've been reading the old Firestar miniseries, a classic, but Justice for Butter Rum, and really loved her character previously. I knew her from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but somehow never realized she was a mutant. All right, so I gotta keep moving. We're gonna bookmark this James the Media Announcer comment, and that question is where we're gonna stop or start where we come back. Okay. But y'all, I love this, and you know, and folks, if you're new and you're just here for the first time, regulars will tell you this is true. I go back and I read the entire chat after the show because I can't read all of the conversations while I'm also being the show. So I do go back and read everything. Your comments are not wasted. I see all of them. And you even haven't had to drink yet because I haven't said comics instead of comments a single time. Okay, this is Dark Pyramid, a brand new book from Mad Cave. This scratched an itch for me. Oh, sorry. Really, really well. And I want to talk about what that is. So this is written by Paul Tobin, art from PJ Holden, colors from Sarah Colella, and letters by Taylor Esposito. I think a lot of comics try to start in our modern day of technology and say, here's an influencer, we're going to follow them into disaster, into horror, into a caper, whatever, because they trust that the idea of an influencer is part of our common shared language and understanding of the world at this point. But just because somebody's an influencer doesn't make them a character we're going to relate to. In fact, a lot of influencers are not relatable at all. And so I think that a lot of books use that as a shorthand and then they forget to like bring us into the character. I like this book because it had this kind of douchey influencer who's like, I'm going to climb a mountain by myself and have a video of it. who we immediately don't super like. And Paul Tobin understood that. And so it lets him go missing. So now not only is his girlfriend trying to find him, but everybody's trying to find him because they were all attracted to this thing. So now this small Alaskan town with this mountain, Mount Denali in it, is being overwhelmed with people. And his girlfriend, who has probably the best line on finding him, can't even like find room at the inn basically to stay for the night before. So I really like the building of it because it took me from like an eye roll, like I don't want to read about this comic about people on their cell phones, into actually feeling like I was grounded in a world where people are responding to this influencer culture. And then I didn't take another page from it, unfortunately. And then it pivots hard into something really, really spooky for like the last 5 or 6 pages in a way that I was like, ooh, like Paul Tobin got me. He got me. I didn't think it was going to go that spooky. So I'm really into this. There's lots of questions like, is this whole town corrupt? Is it evil? Why did the boyfriend go missing? Is he just hurt on the mountain and the spooky stuff? And is in addition to that? No, probably not. Probably something spooky happened to him. Who is this? There's so many questions that left me with. I think it was the perfect back third pivot into the supernatural aspect of this comic. It got me hooked just as I was wondering if I loved this book or not. I'm definitely going to be buying the next issue. I'm not reading DC versus Vampires World War V, although anytime I see Zealot on a cover, my girl Zealot, Zealot, I pronounce everything wrong, I get excited. However, nothing excites me right now like a new issue of Deadpool, and how great it feels to say that. Cody Ziegler with Andrea DeVito on art, Guru EFX on colors, and Joe Sabino on letters. We got to talk about Andrea DeVito's art for a second here. This Deadpool art looked so good. It was great because, you know, nobody's got faces. They're all in masks. So we've got to do a lot of expressiveness with the eyes. Look at the variety of eyes on this page. Look at the big red dog symbiote kind of crying a little, but then, oh, what's that? As he hears something whispered in his ear. Look at Miles' eyes go small while he's being squeezed and bigger later. Like, I just love an artist who makes choices and understands how to work with the characters that they've got. I also think the action is just always so clear. I don't know how they do it because honestly, there's a lot of back and forth action that Ziegler scripts for this book, and it'd be very easy to lose your place in it. But Andrea DeVito, I just always know where it's coming from. And you've heard me talk about panels and paneling and why I don't like people doing super adventurous panels. Let's talk about why this page of panels works. So it's doing this sweep where all of the panels in the top half of the page are angled up and to the right. The middle panel actually is angled that way. The top panel is actually just a square panel with a little bit of that that cutoff down there at the bottom right of it, but it still gives the appearance of it moving up and to the right because all of the motion lines are up and to the right. But actually, if you look at what's happening in the character is coming from the up and to the right and fighting against the motion in the panel. So it really sells her going bam as she hits Deadpool, and she hits, what is his name? Shift, Glorp, whatever his name is, I always forget. Shift. It really sells that. And so then to have an inset panel below that their legs are sprawled out over, so we get to really feel them in motion as her kick hits them, that just further sells the way that this whole page is taking us in motion. But again, notice how smart Andrea DeVito is, has her moving against the motion of the panel towards the edge of the page, towards where we as the reader start on the left. Then do I love this little bit of white space here underneath those tricky panels? I don't think it's amazing. I maybe would like if they just brought this orange continuing down from that top panel, but then we lose that parallelism of everything moving up and to the right. So I think this is actually a good use of that kind of thing. And then we get 2 more clear panels on the bottom as we see these 2 villains who are so fun to hate. I love to hate them in this book as they, Midas and Output, knock down Deadpool and Shift. The action in this was great. It was just a perfect Deadpool comic. And yes, it's a crossover with Miles, but it's just a fun Deadpool story. And it feels like Miles is very much in a Deadpool story. But then in the Miles issues, we're very much reading Deadpool in a Miles story. Cody Ziegler, really, really good. Really, really fun. This Deadpool run is the most fun I've had reading Deadpool in a really long time. Now we come to a comic that, I'm not reading Death of Copra because, as we know, I'm starting Copra from the beginning with this beautiful oversized book from Mikel Fife. And because I've tried to jump in midstream before, it just doesn't work. Even though I do often like jumping in midstream. Mikel Fife was very, very kind in linking Crushing Krisis from his press list of me talking about Copra. And that was such a fun surprise to see last week because I just think he is the bee's knees. So I have not been reading this. What I have been reading, however, is Flash Gordon. And I was a little bit nervous about this issue because Tom Derenick, who's been splitting the issues with Will Conrad, took over on art, and I am addicted to Will Conrad. He's like one of those artists that I just love drawing everything. So I was really nervous that this was not going to capture it, but I think Tom Derenick's style stays pretty close. It's a very Mike Diodato-esque. And Lee Luffridge on colors kept things really consistent. But Jeremy Adams, let's talk about the writing on this. By the way, letters by Taylor Esposito. Jeremy Adams takes Flash Gordon, a character that maybe some of us are dimly aware of from his Pulp Fiction, from Defenders of the Galaxy or whatever, but I would wager that many of us do not have an encyclopedic knowledge of Flash Gordon. Jeremy Adams always gives us exactly the information we needed in that moment to identify with this character, to understand his history, to understand what's happening in the world. This doesn't try to just reboot Flash Gordon and start from the beginning. It's basically saying maybe all of those old Flash stories are absolutely in continuity and we're just in a galaxy that happened just after them. We're picking up those characters, we're picking up that world, those rivalries. I think that's so smart. I think so many licensed character comics could start that way instead of starting with the origin Thundercats, because I'm so drawn in. I'm drawn in because I feel like I don't have to start a story. It's not like buying a book from the beginning every time. It's like I'm already dropped into the story, into these mature relationships, which are complex. So this issue looked great. It has Flash Gordon against people who used to maybe be his allies as he has to fight for his life. And he's realizing that the landscape of the galaxy has changed in part because of his actions. And he does not know who are going to be his allies anymore. I had no existing love of Flash Gordon. I know who the character is, but it's not somebody who appeals to me. This is a hair outside of my top 10 right now. The art is incredible. The story is compelling. If you're liking Jeremy Adams on Green Lantern, I think you will love this. But if you just like space exploration books in general and like pulpy space heroes in general, this book is selling it hard. Now we come to Welcome to Twilight. So I've asked you all a couple of times now, children, I've asked you if any of you have been reading major threats or minor threats. They're not major, they're minor. They're the saddest chord, the minor threat. And nobody has told me. So I was skipping it and I said, you know what? This is a script by Mac Fraction with art from the All Reds. I'm just going to pick up here and see what it's about. I still don't know what Minor Threats is about. I don't even know what it is. I didn't Google it or Wikipedia it or anything. I'm here to tell you that I know you sickos. I know what your taste is like. I know how much you love a Matt and Laura or a Michael and Laura Allred comic. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. Whoa, you're gonna love it. It's just a one-off issue about he's not that much of a dirtbag, but a dirtbag actor who happens to have wings, but they don't fly. They're not that strong. His bones aren't hollow. He didn't get that. He just got wings. Maybe that's why he's a minor threat. Maybe the whole city is minor superheroes. I don't know. I didn't Wikipedia. And it's just him trying to survive in the convention circuit and fall in love with a weird girl who always wants to be submerged in water all the time. All Reds are masters. They sell joke after joke, but this is Fraction in fun mode, and it's in fun mode with an artist who can keep up with it. Sometimes Fraction goes into fun mode and he doesn't have an artist that can keep up with it, and the jokes kind of like waver a little bit. But when he's got an artist like Chip Zdarsky, when he's got an artist like Allred, when he's got an artist like Steve Lieber, the jokes just work. I laughed so hard at this. I thought it was such a funny one and done kind of crime caper. It was so acerbic. It was so funny. It made me want to live in this world. It's kind of like the stupid version of Astro City, right? If Astro City is like the perfect, what if Silver Age comics were forever, and then what if we went through the other eras? This is like, what if that, but dumb. And I loved it. I think all of you who like this kind of stuff, who like Mark Russell comics, who like Mad Men, you will all love this. And if I'm understanding correctly, this Welcome to Twilight is going to be serialized one-shots, so they're not all going to follow this Angel guy. I don't know if Matt Fraction is writing them all. I didn't look into it that deeply, but I'm going to keep reading, and now I'm going to catch up on Minor Threats because I was so into this. Now we come to, I'm not reading Gatchaman from Matt McCabe, but you did all explain what Gatchaman is, and I do appreciate that. Geiger, first of all, I love this cover because I love a bold lady with a silver streak of hair. I'm into it. Also, though, you've really been wearing me down that I should keep reading Geiger, even though I felt it was a little too cynical for me. I caught up on something else for this week, which we're going to get to later, so I didn't get a chance to catch up on this, but I think I might catch up on it next time because you're wearing me down. I did, however, drop Green Hornet and Miss Fury. I just was so angry about the first two issues, but I have to say, if you're not like me, where you get so focused on like if the lead character's been introduced well or if they're an asshole or not, like if you don't get hung up on that stuff the way that I do, this is the art on this is beautiful from Barges. The colors are beautiful. It's a really well-made comic. I just find that I looked at the cover and my finger was hovering over the one-click buy button on Comixology, and I said to myself, do I care whether these characters live or die? And my answer was no, so I did not keep reading it. However, I am reading Green Lantern Corps by Jeremy Adams, and also co-written, let's not lose sight of, by Morgan Hampton, with pencils by Fernando Pesarin, who I think should be the only person allowed to draw Green Lantern Corps, and colors from inks from Eclair Albert, colors from Arif Pianto, letters by Dave Sharp. I love this. I love this for 100 different reasons. This follows the Green Lantern Corps deep into space. And yes, they're tracking down the same problems with the new emotional spectrum being kind of unmanaged by the power batteries in the same way as the main Green Lantern book, which I do have a beef with. But this, it looks spectacular. And they're going to the ruins of, where are all the Hawk people from? Thanagar, I think, is the place where they're from. So they're all in the ruins of it. And there's this wonderful parallel action happening. There's the ruins of the planet. There's John Stewart and his Thanagarian guard that he's with infiltrating the ship that's trying to mine something of the planet. There's what's going on in the bridge. And Adam just cuts back and forth between them so well that the tension mounts, the tension mounts, the tension mounts. And then by the time we get to the action at the end, and frankly, a pretty big, weird reveal in the last page, I was like, hype. My heart was racing. My pulse was pounding. The art was incredible. The colors were amazing. All the characters had distinct voices from each other. I just loved it. This is Green Lantern. This is why I like Green Lantern Corps. I think if you've been away from Green Lantern Corps for a while and you want to come back and enjoy it, this is Green Lantern Corps that you can enjoy. Let's get to the end of like H, or maybe even all the way to M, and then we'll do comments again. Stick around. I'm going to be talking to you, but we just got to keep it pumping. Okay. So this is Hellhunters. I've actually started to come around on this series from Philip Kellen G. Johnson, with art from Adam Gorham, color from Frank Martin, and letters from Travis Lanham. Part of it is I just love Adam Gorham's artwork. Like, I love how we go from these really defined characters here shouting at each other to the Ghost Rider started catching on fire. And then by the end, we've like almost lost all of the defined line work, and it's almost all just color work, color holds as lines. How cool. But Adam Gorham is great like that, and obviously having a great collaboration with Frank Martin. This finally did the thing that I've been asking for it to do. It feels like we've been like wandering around through World War II France for several issues. And I'm like, look, if we've got a team of heroes that we know and love, but they're in World War II during that era, if we're fighting against demons, let's go, let's do it. Let's talk about the conflict we're having with these demons who are collaborating with Nazis because they're like, wow, Nazis are even worse than us. This issue finally took me there. And I find that I'm wishing that this was going to have another arc, because now that we're there, I'm really liking it. So it just feels like there's a chance to tell World War II stories that are really compelling. We've got another one in just a couple of issues that we're going to talk about, and that can work. And I find that I'm engaging with them more. Maybe it's because Nazis are such a threat right now, and it feels like we're being plunged back into the world of the 1930s. I don't know. But I find I'm much more open to reading World War II stories than I have been recently. And this is really starting to click for me. I think it took a while to get the band together, but I'm kind of annoyed that we're just going to get one more issue. I hope this is going to roll into another title for this Ghost Rider of World War II, because I find that I'm into it. Do I need, I think it's fun. And also there's a lot of fun use of Bucky in this. Do I need all of these characters? Captain Carter, Nick Fury, Bucky, Logan? I don't know that I do, but I think many readers and buyers would need them all to feel attracted to it. So I understand if people are going to need it, but I don't necessarily need that. And I finally am coming to a place where I like this. But then there's also Hellverine. Marvel loves putting their two Hell books out in the same release week, which confuses me and makes me name the files wrong to no end. This is by Benjamin Percy, with art from Raphael Yanko, who I love from Greg Pak's Darth Vader, colors from Brian Valenza, and letters from Travis Lanham. This comic got there. It got to that place that I've been asking to go. It got to be a comic actually about Daken Akihiro as a character, but also him as a Ghost Rider. That's all I've been saying this whole time is I don't just want to see him be violent. I don't just want to see like arcane structures made out of 800 people's skeletons. I want to dig into what it means for Daken to be Ghost Rider. Benjamin Percy nailed it here. I'm happy to give out compliments when there are compliments to be given. This was so tied in to his relationship to his mother, and we get some really heartrending, horrific stuff as he deals with this haunting of the town where he was originally from and where his mother was killed, and he was born to a mother that was already dead. But then that wraps up, because this is pretty compressed, and then he realizes the next thing he's probably going to have to deal with to chase down this demonic presence is that time that Rick Remender had Logan drown him in a shallow puddle on Genosha. And so he goes to Mark Russell's new version of Genosha and tries to take action in heading off, finding this demonic presence before it can fully manifest itself. I love that. I love that this is about Daken, his relationship to his parents, using his Ghost Rider powers to let him do things he wouldn't have done as Wolverine, him having agency, but then still being caught in the back foot because he doesn't fully understand what's happening to him. This has all of the ingredients that I'm looking for following a B character and developing their persona, their plot, and their history. And of course, I love my bisexual murder son. So I really, really like this. I'm happy it's an ongoing. It feels like it's clicking. Oh, and I did another page. Yeah, this was creepy. This gave me the ooga boogas. And it wasn't, the thing I liked about it was it wasn't super bloody. It wasn't super gory. It wasn't trying to like be transgressive and push my buttons. It was, I mean, there was something transgressive and creepy about it, but not in an overt way. It was just a creepy scene because of how it was narrated and what he had to do. Really, really dug it. I'm not reading Hexiles from Colin Bunn. It's only on its penultimate issue. One more issue left. It's about a group of bastard children of a magical demon person and how they all meet each other at his funeral, just as the demons who tried to kill him in life are trying to kill him or kill them now that he is dead. I dropped the Hive after one issue. It's that first issue is just messy. I'm sorry. The narrative was all over the damn place. I thought Mike Henderson's art was great, but if I get to the end of an issue and I say, don't care if any of these assholes live or die, then I do not read the next issue. Next, we come to Iron Man. Now, you have heard me be really hard on this book, but I want to prove to you that I go into every issue with an open mind of every comic book because I loved this issue of Spencer Ackerman's Iron Man. First of all, Julius Oda on art, just absolutely killing it. Absolutely love it. I love how he draws a brilliant out of costume Tony Stark, but I love this like steampunky armor that he draws. I can't get enough of it. That other artist who was drawing last issue seemed to be afraid of it. Oda, not afraid of it. He's leaning in. But the thing I really liked here is that I can't explain the difference, but the first few issues, it felt like Ackerman was inventing this whole reason for Iron Man to have conflicts, for Iron Man's world to be complicated. It seems like he was just inventing and inventing and inventing. And it didn't feel like it was that rooted in watching Tony have like a real reaction to something. Here, it's so rooted in Tony because this is happening during One World Under Doom. He's meeting with a Latvian insurgent who's saying like, look, we've got to basically do this whole CIA shell game thing to make Doom confident enough that we can get under his skin and contain him. It's like this whole kind of like giving weapons to the terrorists in another country to destabilize the government. But then later you realize you funded the terrorists who now are in charge of the government and have become ISIS. And Tony is having to deal with all that, but while also saying, well, look, I just came here to give you money. I don't make weapons anymore. And he's having to contend with the idea of like, to destabilize Doom's world, is he going to have to make weapons again, which is the thing that he absolutely doesn't want to do. It felt essential to Tony. It felt like a story you could only tell with Iron Man instead of just some boardroom story that we could have been telling with Green Arrow or Iron Fist, which is a lot of the other issues it felt so far. I don't think you have to read a single other issue of this comic book. I think you can just start with this issue of Iron Man, issue number 6. It's not actually titled The Insurgent Iron Man. That's just the name of the arc. I think you could just pick up here. I think it was incredibly well done, and I really enjoyed myself. I'm not reading Jupiter's Legacy finale because I've never even read the beginning of Jupiter's Legacy, so I'm way behind. Katabasis, oh, I'm sorry. I put issue number 1 here again. I meant to put issue number 3. My apologies. But I put issue number 1 because that's the issue that I read, and I loved it. I reached out to them to see if we can get digital copies. But the thing is, they do have this issue 1 on Global Comics. You can go read it right now. It's about this woman who becomes Hell's secret agent to help ferry people that need to move between heaven and hell. The art was just like this, a beautiful cover, but on the interiors, I felt it so engaging. Kind of felt like Black Widow working for heaven and hell. So I'm hoping they're going to get back to me and let me know when issue 2 and 3, because issue 3 was the one out this week, will be on Global Comics, or if there's going to be some other way to read them digitally, because like I'm hype. I loved it. So if you have Global Comics, please go and read it. Kendra, I feel like we've had this cover already, but it was in this week's list. It's from Antarctic Press. I did not read it. Lady Death. I love Lady Death so much. And when I see this cover and I see it's part 3 of 4, and when I see her with her magic around her fist and her giant sword, I just want to read it, even though I know I cannot afford to be in the pledging $10 per Kickstarter game for each of these 48 page issues that are just her boobing along boobily every time. But I just love Lady Death. I can't help that I remember her from the 90s. So maybe eventually I'll get on one of the next Kickstarters and I'll like bulk up on all the books and we'll have a big Lady Death marathon. Are any of you reading it? It's just, I actually even like the Avatar Press Lady Death stuff from like the early 2000s or mid 2000s. These books feel like they're just an excuse for cheesecake. And I say again and again, I'm a person who buys cheesecake covers because in the 90s, that was the only way to know you were going to get a female protagonist. But these days you can get a female protagonist all sorts of places. And sometimes cheesecake is just cheesecake. I did read Roman Dirge's Lenore. It's an adorable comic. I would tell you if you've never read Lenore before. It's like, do you know that comic, The Oatmeal, theoatmeal.com? It's just like issue long oatmeal script. I don't know if I'm going to keep reading it. I found the first issue so funny. It just felt like so many Deadpool caliber gags where Lenora was talking to us as the reader and she was joking about like how dumb the other characters were. And it really, really engaged me. This month was similar, but it just kind of felt like I could have gotten more from reading a strip on the oatmeal. It's not that person. It just reminds me of the oatmeal. It just didn't feel substantial enough to me. But I guess if you're somebody who loves Lenora and you love, I mean, she's just this weird, she's like some weird little doll that's like murdered people or something. I don't know. It doesn't fully explain her, but she's been cast back through time. And so now they're in ancient Egypt. I never started the clock. I just realized this. It's very cute. I just don't know if I can pay $5 for the very, very quick, kind of sketchy looking read that I got out of this. I'm not reading Love and Rockets, although I know it is a classic and it is from Fantagraphics. And now I think we're to the M's, and then we're going to take a break and catch up with the chat. This is Mine is a Long and Lonesome Grave, issue number 2. We really liked issue number 1. However, right now, Mine is a Long and Lonesome Drop, because this is the end of this one for me, written by Justin Jordan with illustrations from Chris Sheehan, colors from Alessandro Santoro, and letters from Micah Myers. Here's the thing. If you're going to have an issue 1, and you sell me on this cool supernatural mystery and how this town is more than meets the eye, and that how you didn't, you know, there's a mystery about how your wife died and why your daughter won't talk to you, but now you're out of prison and somebody's put a curse on you. And then the second issue is just a bunch of shooting people in the head and like throwing rocks at them. And it's just like a pew, pew, pew of revenge with guns issues. I just don't think that, I don't feel like that's what I was promised in the first issue. I don't feel like the craft of this issue was up to the craft of the first issue. I don't think the level of intent that was put into the first issue was put into this issue. I really felt baited and switched. I felt like, oh, you bought my first issue that I spent like so long perfectly crafting. Here, just have some people shooting guns at each other for 30 pages, but you're going to keep buying it, right? No, I'm not. Sorry. There was limited money, limited time, and limited attention, and you did not keep me hooked because you did not fulfill your promise. And then The Moon is Following Us. This is a book that does keep me hooked because it does fulfill its promise. Daniel Warren Johnson proving once again that he's just as good of a writer as he is an illustrator, because his plot has just got me hooked. I love the device of him dividing back and forth with his art with Riley Rossman every issue. Mike Spencer's colors are amazing. Sean Lee's letters really work. I mean, this page of this little girl who's like, I'm using my ice power to freeze you, Dad. You know, as a parent, it just hit me. And even as not a parent, I think we've all been this kid who's like, just play pretend with me, follow my rules. Yes, and me, I'm a kid. I just am playing pretend. I just loved it. It had so much heart. And then, of course, we seg into Raleigh Rossmo. And the thing I love about this is the characters are learning and growing. I don't want to read the same issue every month. I want to read an issue that keeps a promise of a world that grows and changes every month. And the kid's parents here, stuck in her dreamscape, are growing and changing and understanding the rules of the dreamscape, and in an interesting way that they can force the rules of the dreamscape to change, just like their opponents have forced them. And I will say, trigger warning on what is heavily implied to be child abuse towards the end here, but proving to me that it can be done sensitively and it can be done dramatically without being used in a sensational way. I'm not going to point fingers at the authors I think are bad at that. I'm saying I think Daniel Warren Johnson implied all that needs to be implied without sensationalizing it, without using it as like a women in refrigerators or kids in refrigerators kind of thing, in a way that was deeply unsettling and showed that there's a lot of depth to this world without just making this whole comic into an abuse comic. So I really, really appreciated that. I was amazed by how deftly it was handled, and just more interior art, because good Lord, Mike Spicer's colors and the letters. I mean, just look at this, the working together in this page. I want to talk about this for a second. Look at the eyes there, right? I'm fascinated how a colorist like Mike Spicer just knows what to do here. Just, I know he's guided by Riley Rossmo's art a little bit, but there's so many little touches, little highlights, drops of perspiration, a little bit of highlight underneath the dark circle under his eye. The way the light is hitting his eyes in the middle, so it's just perfectly bisecting his pupils. The little highlights above the creases in his brow. I probably spent 8 minutes just looking at that panel of his eyes. And then to go under that to this pink, which bathes the whole page going all the way up. But here we see him shooting like a rocket, and I think what he's using is like a car seat or something, which is because they've always told their kid, you're never going to get hurt if you're in your car seat. So in the dream world, the car seat is indestructible, because that's how dream world logic works. So to see him popping through the throat of this snake, and then on this bright yellow or red pink background, and then this yellow lettering that kind of gradiates to being bright and brighter yellow, and then also the Bengay dots at the source of the explosion. What a page. This might be I would buy this page. This is my favorite page from all of this book, I think. And I'm hooked. I know I was feeling a little soft on it on like issues 4 and 5. Issue 6 and 7, I'm there. I'm riding along. I want the deluxe edition sold. Okay, finally we're to ends and I can take a break. It's just if I break before the ends, I love talking to you all so much that if I break before the ends, this never ends. Like I need, there's got to be certain letters where we take the breaks. Okay, I said I was going to come back and talk about James the Mediumancer. What the Capes run, I think, is a masterclass on how to write a superhero book. Well, you know, with me, there's always a recency effect because I'm always thinking about the thing I just finished reading. I think a really good superhero book grounds you in the character, especially for a really established superhero, and then challenges the character in a way that makes you have a better understanding of their modus operandi, their morals, their ethics. I think a run that really did that well recently is Mark Waid on Action Comics, because he did this awesome 11 or 12 week weekly run at the end of 2024 that was about the Phantom Zone. And we know the Phantom Zone is something that Superman feels conflicted about. Like, he doesn't want to leave people in this Phantom Zone, but sometimes he has to. And so to be able to play on that, and then to put him into the Phantom Zone, and then to have him have to defend the Phantom Zone by something that could be worse than the Phantom Zone, to me, that's how you set up a great arc for a solo character, right? You show us the character, you give us a conflict that they don't know how to be on the right side of, and then you take us through the conflict and we watch their opinions shift. I think if you look at some of the best runs of Daredevil, if you look at some of the best runs of Batman, that's often one of the keys. Yeah, you can do a mystery box story. Yeah, it's fun to watch somebody unravel something. But I think for a superhero that's really, really well established, you almost want to always introduce them to something that is the antithesis of them, whether that's a situation, a thing they have to defend, a villain, something that is their opposite, because that helps us know who they are without having to redo an origin story. So I think that's, to me, what often creates a master class. Super job, I'm usually a trade reader, but being regular in the stream, we've established you're a regular. Now, next step, we're going to have to think of what your profile picture is going to be. Makes me want to catch up the weeklies. Well, the great thing about this, and I always say this, is I'm not just trying to do this to get you to spend money. I'm trying to do this to A, make wise choices, B, find books you might not have found already, but C, let's talk about the easy way to do this, right? You could be subscribed to Marvel Unlimited, DC Unlimited, and Global Comics for less than $20 a month, which I know is still a lot of money to spend, and it adds up to $240 a year. And I get that. I'm not trying to downplay that, but that's like 1 week of these pulls. Like, I'm trying to show you that, look, if you're trending more to Marvel books or trending more to DC books, or want to read all these indies and catch up on them, there are ways to do that and not be a crazy person like I'm being. So just let this, make your list, jot them down, and then at a 1 month delay on DC Ultra or a 3 month delay on Marvel, or sometimes just the next week on Global Comics, you could read them all. And then every so often you'll pick up one, or maybe you'll mark down what trade you're going to get. But I just want to be explicit that I'm not trying to get everybody to spend all of their time in life reading singles every week. I'm trying to do this so that when we do get the chance to read these unlimited, when we do get a chance to support the trade paperbacks, we know why they're great. Because I think something that happens a lot of time is I'll go through the DCBS catalog and I'll see so much amazing looking indie stuff, which we saw me do on last Thursday's show, and I don't know what it is because I've never heard anybody talk about it. And I know there's people out there. There's this great channel. I'm going to put them on the friends list, even though they're not officially a friend. James, maybe you could find it and put it in the chat, and I'll highlight it when I get there. They're called Bat City Comics, and it's this awesome, really funny, genuine woman who pours herself a glass of wine a lot of times, and she makes a stack. She works at a comic book store that's also a 501c3, and she makes a huge stack of every indie book, and she basically does this, and only with indie. And it gets like 100 views because a lot of people will not show up to only talk about indie books, but I love it. So I'm trying to see if we can find something to do with her on Near Mint Condition, because I think people need to be watching her stream, and part of watching her stream inspired me to get back to doing this, but in a different way. Like, I'm never going to be just an indie expert the way she is, but I guess my point that I eventually made there, super job, is I just want to see more people talking about The Moon Is Following Us like that, more people talking about minor threats like that, so that we get as hyped for those collections coming as the Marvel and DC collections. So I feel like we all know when a collection comes out what we want from Marvel and DC, but sometimes the clamor about the indie books is so low key that we don't even know by the time the collections come out. Hey, Super Panda, finally off work and you can join. Yay, I agree. Gianni P, we talked Tin Can Society in the FML Discord a bit ago. Yeah, well, we were all motivating each other to get even more and more hype about it. Love that book so much. Everything. See, this is where we disagree, but I'm enjoying that we agree we're a little Venn diagram, my new friend, in that we agree on some things and don't, because I do not think everything Rick Remender's Giant Generator imprint publishes is great. I will say I'm liking all of the books not written by Rick Remender. I think he's got great taste as a curator. I love Dust to Dust. There's another one I was reading, and I also do really like The Sacrificers. I think that Rick Remender is discovering his power in identifying good stories, and I like that he's bold about it. I like that he just posted the other day on Blue Sky, I'll put up my crew of writers and artists in our group of stories against the stories coming out from any publisher or imprint anywhere, because I know they're that good. Like, I like that level of confidence, and honestly, I agree with it because the stories are that interesting. Yeah. Novarg, I appreciate the 2 cents either way. A fresh voice on things can give you and some much needed perspective. Awesome. Lance McNair, does anybody here like Looney Tunes? I love Looney Tunes, and we don't get HBO Max here, or maybe we finally just got it in the past couple of weeks in New Zealand. So there's no easy way to just show my kid lots of Looney Tunes, and so she's been captured by Disney. And I don't like Mickey Mouse stuff. I want her to see Bugs Bunny cross-dressing and singing opera. Damn it! But yeah, I love Looney Tunes. So I've been hearing a lot of cool things about the movie. I mean, who knows what streaming it'll show up here, but I would love to see it. I don't need to be a bad guy to eat some brains. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue. Johnny's got to head out but do some college work. Hey, man, school comes first. Thank you so much for dropping by, though, and I look forward to getting to be on a stream with you eventually. Maybe not so far in the future. Lance McNair, do I think Emma Frost is more of a hero or a villain? I don't think I've ever thought of Emma as a villain. And part of that is because I came into comics with Uncanny X-Men 281. That was one of the first monthly issues I bought. So it was clear she had been a villain, but she wasn't really a villain in that moment. And so I think that's always colored my perspective on her. I think Emma is on her team. I think any writer who has her do something to be villainous, they don't understand Emma Frost. And anybody who has her do something good just for the sake of being good also does not understand Emma Frost. I think Hickman understood her perfectly when he had her say in Hoxpox, once again, for the children. She really believes that she's making a good mark on the world, and often she's doing it in terrible ways, but she always has her reason for doing it. And I just think that's her character. Anybody who tries to make her a hero or a villain has missed it. And I think, as somebody who criticizes Hickman often for not being great at writing women characters, I think he writes Emma spectacularly. James read Dark Pyramid #1 when what does that say? When Hooky goes missing, his girlfriend Becca goes looking for him. Fun issue, reminds me of some episode of the X-Files. It almost feels like the setup part of an X-Files episode, but then Mulder and Scully never get there, and the people just have to like deal with it themselves. Hello, Nax Imaginog, greetings. I was just thinking about you. Oh, because somebody was doing this amazing Wizard of Oz thing. Are you on Blue Sky? I need to know how to send you things, because now every time I see it was somebody writing academically. It might have been Anthony Oliveira. It's all coming back to me now. That was not the melody of that song. Content, copyright. It was Anthony Oliveira, who writes Avengers Academy, was writing about how Ozma in Oz was a boy being held captive, but then becomes a princess, and that effectively it's a trans story in this turn of the century fiction. Anyway, I just want to send you Wizard of Oz stuff all the time. May only be able to pop in for a moment, but if FIFA mentioned you at all, whether he was intends to collect all, yes. He didn't mention to me, but he mentioned on his site that he wants to do more of the master collections, but he's waiting until Death of Copra is over, which is why I went in and bought this one. Like, well, if you say you have intent and you claim you're going to do it, I will give you my money now for the first one as a down payment. Maybe you should put them on Kickstarter. Pittyma, Happy Flash Gordon is good because I've been collecting the floppies and did not binge it. Oh, I got to binge the first 5 issues because I had been waiting to read it. And when I did, the first 3 issues, the first issue is just, chef kiss. From the world of Minor Threats, welcome to Twilight. Wait, James, you were secretly reading Minor Threats without me this whole time? Do I have to call our therapist, James, and book an appointment for right after this video? From the world of Minor Threats, welcome to Twilight and Run. The plot didn't work. What? But it's trying too much at once. Enjoyed the art and the ending. Well, that's why we go to therapy, James. That's why we go to therapy. Beyond Comics Kira, to my Kiwi friend, glad to hear I might catch up on Geiger. I know you don't love John's, but I think it is great world building. That's what's working on me. I just love world building. And even though I don't like really anything about Jeff Johns, if we're being honest, I do think he builds worlds pretty well. And the idea of seeing a world that he builds from scratch is very, very interesting to me. I need more World War I stories with you and Jack. Yeah, you don't really read a lot of World War I comics too often. anymore. Kiwis, Beyond can back me up with this or not, are like obsessed with World War One because they shipped out some soldiers to Gallipoli, and so my kid in like grades 1 through 5 learned about World War One every year, but not World War II. Because Kiwis are obsessed with it. We had a big exhibit about it that Peter Jackson helped commission at Te Papa, which is our national museum. But yeah, Kiwis have a lot of sentiment still tied up in World War One, and it's really interesting coming from the States where like you don't hear about World War One that much in the United States. I mean, I learned about it in history class, but I definitely knew a lot more about World War II. Very, very interesting. Okay. Yeah, James, I went looking for mine as a Long Lonesome Grave on Global Comics. Didn't see it on Global Comics. Then wound up spending $5 on it because, we buy things to support these artists, and then hated it and dropped it. Would I keep reading it? So here's something interesting. And this is maybe a future moment of crisis. Does the economy of reading something change if you're getting it as part of a subscription? Kind of like, will you watch a trashy TV show on Netflix even if you would never like watch that week to week on broadcast or on cable or whatever? How is that for comics? Because I definitely read some comics I hate because I get to read them on an all-you-can-eat platform where I just can. And there's some comics that I've dropped that are semi-decent, but I will not pay $5 an issue. So I think that if it was, would I have been as angry about this issue had it been on Global Comics? I'm not sure. I still think it broke its promises. I don't know if it would have made me as angry. Cyril, I love that. I really loved it. I loved every page of it. I think it maybe would have been the best issue so far. I think it just hit, and hit. Yeah. Superdrop is primarily a DC reader, and Universe is still not available in the Netherlands. Fun fact, and I'm always happy to communicate this, if you have a card that can buy things in American dollars, you may be able to VPN to the website and subscribe in America and then always just access it via VPN. I still have American dollar credit cards because they started as American credit cards, even though I live in New Zealand. And for the longest time, I couldn't sign up with my New Zealand bank account, but I could sign up with an American credit card. I know that is an immense privilege, and I've seen how hard it is to get an American dollars credit card. But the other thing is, even if you exchange some money with a friend who signs up for you, who has an American dollars or a credit card in any of the countries where it is, the UK, New Zealand, Australia, you can access it with VPN, because that's how I still access it, because the website doesn't work in New Zealand, only the app. So there you go. Here's Bat City Comic Professionals. They don't know they're a secret friend of Krisis. I went to this amazing presentation one time called Secret Mentors. Off topic. We'll cover it some other time. But they're my secret friend. I'm gonna come out as their friend soon, I think. I cannot recommend Bat City Comics channel highly enough. Yay! I'm so happy that somebody else loves them. Jeremy Coolell. Small Press Shannon's recall of every indie book is absolutely incredible. Honestly, I feel confident in doing the thing I'm doing here because I know I will never be as good as her, and it's just a separate amazing thing. All right, I'm gonna just reach out to her and tell her. You know what? I think the thing was, I felt weird about saying hi to people like her, like Gianni, who I just said hi to over the weekend, because I didn't have a channel before. So I was just this like weird guest star on Near Mint Condition. It was like kind of like if you like meet somebody's neighbor every time you go over their house, and then one day the neighbor just calls you on your cell phone and you're like, hi, I have your number. That's kind of felt like that. But now that I have a YouTube presence of my own again, I guess I don't feel as embarrassed about saying hi to people that I like. It's working for me getting these comp copies. So I might as well talk to other people who have other YouTubes. Oh, HBO. Oh, this reminds me of a funny thing. HBO Max, Lance has just removed all of Looney Tunes, which sucks. I'm going to have to hunt down the DVDs. Me and Felix, my Australian friend who sometimes shows up in the comics, but comics drink instead of comments. He and I are threatening to do a Looney Tunes guide that has all of the different DVDs, because they're all missing some Looney Tunes books or comics or cartoons. The Wikipedia kind of explains it, but I need like a Crushing Krisis style how to put it together. And I would buy them if I had that guide, and I'm not confident enough that I would buy the right things. So I kind of need to do it. Lance agrees on my take with Emma, but justice for Butter Run. Yeah. Hey, LMS, I brought an iPad today to start reading singles and trades digitally. How cool. Partly because of Stace, because my live has made you want to check out more stories. Sweet. Yeah. I mean, Marvel and DC subscription can't go wrong. $20 between the two of them for just about every Marvel and DC comic ever published. You will never have a bored moment of your life ever again. Plus, every 3 months, getting to read everything that comes out and just make your little list, make a little spreadsheet based on this, or just go on League of Comic Geeks. And every time I hear fun life hack, fun trick, if you have a League of Comic Geeks account and you just bring up the current week's new comics and you keep that up in another browser window while you watch this, just click the pull button on every book that you hear me talk about that you want. And then when 3 months from now, when all those books come to Marvel Unlimited, you'll have a checklist of all the books you want to read. Okay. Wow, I made it to the bottom. Finally. Hold on, I misclicked. Rye Hunter, hello to you. Really appreciate me doing the streams as comics are getting really expensive in Canada. Heard, man. Even digital books are really expensive in New Zealand. I mean, I'm talking about spending $5 in a digital book. That's American. In New Zealand dollars, I spent $9 on that comic. That's a lot of money. And then if I wanted to get one physically, it'd be even more expensive. It'd be like $12. So I hear you. I understand things being expensive. Okay, I am so happy that I got all the way to the bottom, because that means I can go back to books with no guilt that I've left anybody behind. No commenter left behind. Okay. Now we've got to get from N to the end of the alphabet. And I don't take as many breaks generally between N and the end of the alphabet. So this is going to be a little bit of a speed run. This is the last issue of Jason Aaron's Namor, with art split between Paul Davidson and Alex Linz, with colors from Niraj Menon and letters from Joe Caramagna. I think this issue did a really good job of justifying this whole series. I had ups and downs. I hated issue 1 and 2. I thought some of the action in issue 4 was hard to follow, but I've really come around to it in 6 and 7. And I like this because it's a complete story of Namor. I like that, along with Hickman, Aaron seems to have got the memo of, like, we all like long runs, but sometimes with certain characters, you just need one contained run that is in continuity, but that, like, tells a significant story for this character. I feel like we learned something about Namor. I feel like he went somewhere. I feel like this was a complete story. However, I would also say that I don't feel like this issue did anything. I feel like last issue was the climax and this was all denouement. I feel like this was all falling action. I know I never felt thrilled. Nothing exciting happened. It was just the end of the story, which is fine. And I think in an 8-issue miniseries where every issue was double size, so it was really a 16-issue miniseries, this would have just been issues 15 and 16. And it kind of makes sense that the plot would have crescendoed in issue 14, and that issues 15 and 16 would kind of be the downward fall. I can mildly recommend this, and I can say, no matter how much you hate issue number 1, it has more in store for you past that. I'm not reading Napalm Lullaby. I read the first issue of this from Ramendra Bengal and truly hated it, so I'm not going to keep pulling it and giving it more chances. However, I did read this very strange little one-shot, Nick Fury versus Fin Fang Foom. First, actually, I want to talk about something without the clock running. This cover is by Gary Frank. I think we can all agree that this Fin Fang Foom is mind-blowing. It's so good, right? But the interior art is from Elena Casagrande, who's another amazing artist, and her Fin Fang Foom is also amazing. And their art styles could not be more different. Elena Casagrande has this beautiful backlit animation cell style of illustration. Gary Frank is all about all of the lines, all of the texture, make it gritty. Why would you put his cover on her comic book? Even if people buy it for his cover, not only is this scene not in the comic book, but this art is not in the comic book. She's an Eisner winner. It's just weird to me. It just was a total mismatch, and it made me angry. So then I thought I wasn't going to like it, but guess what? I loved this. I loved it. I don't know if I would run out and buy this one shot right now if I was you, but this is one I would bookmark to catch when it comes on Marvel Unlimited. This is a pre-World War II Nick Fury who is just in an air show, being an acrobat, right? But so this is before he enlists in the army, but he gets enlisted on this one mission to find out what's happening to planes that the US government is, I think this is actually historical, is supplying to China, even though US is not yet involved in the war because China is already fighting against Japan. And he goes to find out what's happening to the planes, and the thing that's happening is Fin Fang Foom. I love this because JMS found this very slim sliver of continuity where he could put this story that makes sense both for Fin Fang Foom and for Nick Fury and tells us interesting things about them. It was so well written. It really made me feel for him as this person that's actually starts out reluctant to get into conflict, but he's just somebody who can get the job done. And he realized that maybe he does have a duty to his country as somebody who can get the job done. It almost made me like run right to my bookshelf and read a Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos comic, which is not a sentence you're going to hear me say a whole lot or very often. It's somewhere down here because I know there's one epic collection. Oh, it's in the back row down there. Like, wow, you got me really invested in World War II Nick Fury. I would read a whole series of this. I would absolutely pick up with Nick Fury's earliest adventures in World War II, as drawn by Elena Casagrande. Just look at the light here. The light is so beautiful. The colors by Mattea Iancono. Just this little dapple of light on his wrist here because he's in shadow from the parachute behind him. There's this little glint of light on his nostril on his otherwise shadowed face. I just think really good use of light, motivated lighting, right? The lighting that's actually there in the scene, in the place, in the moment. Loved it. Well, we haven't done any yelling yet. Phoenix by Stephanie Phillips, Alessandro Miracolo, David Curiel, and Ariana Maher. Why would you have a Jean Grey comic when you're not interested in Jean Grey? As a character, as a force, this feels like a Nova and Rocket joke comic that Jean Grey is occasionally flying through. It feels like a Origin of Alien Aldani comic that Phoenix is occasionally flying through. I want to talk about Alessandro Miracolo and how bad of an artist he is. Why doesn't he know how to draw faces? See this face? First of all, it's not a face. Second of all, the faces look different on every single page. None of the likenesses match because he draws a whole new face every time. It feels like he's just discovering the concept of faces, and so he's taking a new stab at it every time. Also, I hate this costume on Jean. I like her in black, but whoever, and I usually love David Curiel, but whoever decided that the color choice in the suit was just going to be star dash, it doesn't look cosmic. It's not the way that they're coloring Wanda's hair in Scarlet Witch, where it's got that big cosmic sweep. It just looks like somebody did like fill as pattern in Microsoft Paint or something. Like it's so bad. So, and I usually love David Curiel. So Jean, and then this whole thing is not confronting what Jean Grey is or what she's about as the Phoenix. Like it's like talking about she's crossing a boundary to get more power. We don't have to give her more power, you fucking morons. She's already got plenty of power. If you have Jean Grey in a comic book and you're on issue 9 and the only thing you can think to do with her is to give her more power because you haven't thought of a plot in 9 issues and you can't even write internal monologue for Jean Grey, so you're busy focusing on other characters, maybe you shouldn't be reading this comic book or writing it. None of it shouldn't exist. Fired. They're fired. They're all fired. I hate it. I hate this book. Jean is one of my favorite characters, and she's used wrong so often. And then she dies and is away for so long. She finally has an ongoing title. To see a writer fuck it up issue after issue, month after month, and then to have this get extended to a third arc where she's just going to fuck it up even more, it just makes me angry. Like, put somebody on this comic book who cares about Jean Grey. Well, I got all my anger out there, so now I don't have to shout about this fucking mess of a comic book. It's bad. See, now 1 second, we can stop the clock. He's not even Luke Cage. He's Luke Cage from the future in this power. I didn't even say the title because I hate it so much. I don't even know if I want to. I don't know if I can keep reading this. I got it. I guess I'll restart the clock. I got it because it's set in the present day. And so since it's not an alternate future book, I thought I would read it because it's the Luke Cage from the frankly great timeless one-shot that they actually, but for some reason they brought him back to the present day where he has no use. There's no room for him in our galaxy. He could be having this fight in any galaxy. Why is he in the 616? I know, because they're going to do some big thing that's going to kick off the next event. Shut up. Shut up. And so now he fights some character who's got a sword and he's all powerful, but they're both all powerful. There's no stakes. Luke Cage is a character who he is because of the way he's been involved in the carceral state, because of the relationship he has with Jessica Jones, because of the path he took from a criminal to a leader of the Avengers to the mayor of New York. If you're going to take all of that away and you're just going to make him a Hulk who's also the Sentry, who's also Iron Fist, who's also Moon Knight, who's also... then is it Luke Cage anymore? And why are we reading it? And what are we getting from it? So you have this fight from these two unstoppable forces. I get it, because he's called Power Man. That's the joke. That's the joke. He's Power Man, and he's got all of the powers. Woo-hoo! Why? Why are you spending time on this? Why are you writing this? Why are you making this? Why was this pitch accepted? Why can't we have an actual Luke Cage comic book? Why is there no point to this? What is the point of just reading about these two immovable forces who have no internal life, no interiority, pummeling each other? Why? I didn't read Prodigal Son from Thunder Comics. I'm just not a big Western person generally. I mean, I sometimes can like a Western stuff, but this didn't make me want to run out and read it. I'm not reading Redcoat because I did find it just so boring. Geiger, at least I found interesting, but just too cynical for me. Redcoat I found boring. So we're going to try Geiger first. I'm going to try catching up. Then I will say I do love Hitch's artwork in the issues of this I read so much. So that might be what pulls me back in, but I haven't been reading for now. So this was one of my 2 big catch-ups this week. And what's funny is I didn't actually do a big catch-up on Rogue Sun. So this issue 25 said new story arc. I said, great. One of my favorite tropes of all time is when images of the future thing. It was like in 1993 or 4 where they did issue 25 of several titles, even though they were only on issue 8 or 9, but then only one of the titles made it that far, Stormwatch, which I love. That was so influential on me. It like became my lifelong kink. I think about it all the time. I love the idea of hinting at the future 2 years before you're going to get there. So what I did is I read the first 3 issues of Rogue Sun, which are on Global Comics because the first 2 trades are there. And then I just jumped right to issue 25 and I had a great recap page, which I did not read. I just wanted to read this as the future. This is a massive verse book. It is the first one that I genuinely loved. Renee Spawn, who's one of our commenters here, was saying on the Thursday secret stream that this is her favorite of all of the Rogue Massiveverse books. I'm so happy she did. I'm totally into it. That was all background. I didn't even use the clock. Whatever. I'm going to keep talking. So the idea of this first issue, this kid has no relationship with his dad. His dad went and got remarried to somebody rich, and then he died. And they're like, oh, what is he going to leave us? Like anything? Why would he leave us something if he couldn't be there for us in life? But what this kid finds out is that he gets left superpowers from his dad instead of his dad's other kids, his half sister and half brother. And they've got some kind of feeling about that. But unfortunately, with the superpowers, which is kind of just like a mystical Iron Man type of suit, the Rogue Son, and people know who the Rogue Son is. Like he's famous, but nobody knew the dad was the Rogue Son. But it's also like a generational thing. So I guess it's kind of more like Green Lantern. Like other people have had it before him. We get the implication. But he finds out that because his dad died in the line of duty as Rogue Son, which he didn't know because he didn't know he was Rogue Son, his dad is always going to be in the suit talking to him, except for he doesn't want to talk to that deadbeat asshole. That hooked me. The thing was, the kid, the actual kid, is an asshole. And you know, I have trouble with asshole characters sometimes, but it was so effective because it made him an asshole, like a bully in high school. And he was kind of also just nasty to his mom at home. And I was like, I don't want to read about this character. But then immediately flipped it. And we actually kind of like took pity on him because his dad just left them to be poor and not have any groceries. And then he lived in this mansion. Like it's that kind of flip in expectations with a character that really can like change how you initially feel about them and make you feel like they're textured. It's almost like, you know, like scraping something so you can put glue on it so something will adhere to it. That's, you rough the character up a little bit so our attention can adhere to them. From that point, I was into it because I'm like, this is an interesting story. A kid getting the powers of his dad that he never knew, doesn't identify with. He loves having superpowers, but to have the superpowers, he's gonna have to spend time with his dad that he doesn't want to. So now we get to issue 25, which I just jumped right in. I loved it. First of all, this artist, Abel, hot. So hot. Hot. And the colors from Natalia Marquez, really bold. Look at this toxic green, which is so different from that the deep burning magma orange that we've got on the Rogue Sun costume. And of course, I love Becca Carey's letters. We've established this. Really fun, just a little bit of fun, making some of the letter balloons a little bit different. But the thing I really love that I didn't know what was going on here is there's 2 Rogue Suns in this issue. And it explains who the second one is. And I knew who she was. Oh, spoilers, she, from the initial couple of issues, but there's so many status quo changes. Like the family relationships have changed. Why is there a second Rogue Sun suit? Who's the person who's talking in that suit? I'm so into it. I'm like totally hooked. So this Massiveverse is the first Massiveverse book to totally hook me, Rogue Sun. Now I'm going to read the rest of it. So volumes 1 and 2 are on Global Comics. I'm going to hoover those up probably right after the show. And then for issue 26 next month, I'm going to catch all the way up to issue 25 because they finally got me. Renee Spawn, thank you so much for that recommendation. Absolutely loved it. Really cool book. Next, we come up to, oh, by the way, not Sabretooth. Hold on. I never got to say the writers. Written by Ryan Parrott. I finally get to see him on his home turf. I've read him on some DC stuff, but I've never read him on his own book. He launched this book for Massiveverse, but now he's joined by co-writer Nick Cotton. Okay. Now we come to Sabretooth, The Dead Don't Talk. Frank Thierry. I should have known better than to trust Frank Thierry. We all know better than to trust Frank Thierry. The first 2 issues of this comic book were remarkable. Sabretooth in a gangs of New York, turn of the century, 1900s New York, shifting the power of the mobs there and Wilson Fisk's ancestor because he's got some claws. Then, for some reason, Frank Thierry just wants to make it into a superhero book. So like last issue, we got Sabretooth, you know, fighting in the streets with somebody from Kunalun. And so then they decide they like each other because of course they do. So they have sex in this burning down flop house because of course they do, because that's a Frank Thierry comic. And so what can you guess the next thing that would happen? Because it's a Frank Thierry comic. I bet you can. They have a lot of sex and then she gets killed in front of him and all her blood is everywhere because what is a Frank Thierry comic if we don't sacrifice some women so that we can make the man look cool and feel something? That's what happened in this issue. And then let's just have more superpowered things. Let's have a super crocodile. Let's let's have somebody in an Iron Man suit. It doesn't matter that it's like 1912 or 1920 or whatever the fuck it is. It doesn't matter because Frank Thierry has no fucking ideas in his head, and he threw away everything that was cool and unique about this comic to just write this throwback superhero thing. And I understand why he did it, right? Because it's franchisable. Because if somebody really gets hooked on one of these characters, then Marvel's going to hire him again to come back and do more of these throwback superheroes in the early 1900s. Now we've got a whole new line of comics, just like Spider-Man Noir. But guess what? He had something really magic in the first 2 issues, and Michael Maria is working his ass off on these pencils alongside colors from Rachel Rosenberg, and he threw it all away to do the stupid stuff that happened in this issue. I honestly don't even want to read the next issue, but I will because it's X-Men and I have to figure out where to put it in the Sabretooth guide. But I found this issue offensively bad for 100 reasons, not just because of the women in refrigerators, but just because of every single way that it was structured and the absolute paucity of good ideas in the story. I've never heard of this before. Santos Sisters. It's interesting because it's obviously made to look like an Archie comic, but I get the feeling it's not an Archie comic. So I didn't look too deeply into getting it digital, but maybe one day, I'm not reading Snot Girl by Scott Pilgrim's Brandon Lee O'Malley. Just not my thing. Love the crop top. I love a crop top with a bolero jacket on top of the crop top. Love that fashion. Okay. Not reading Space Ghost. Spawn. Okay. So I have to do a special reading from a certain page on this issue, and it's going to really explain to you my opinions on this issue. So see this panel at the bottom with Spawn's cloak. Here's what the caption says, and I'll just read it as written. The symbiote's crimson flesh flares like a dragon with a dozen wings. Effectively, there's new sense, effectively blotting out any light, thus creating its own massive shadowed base. That's not how the English language works. All of the punctuation is in the wrong place. And furthermore, like it just doesn't track. Like it doesn't actually make sense. Like a dragon with a dozen wings. It's just something about it just doesn't make sense. So I thought, okay, what if I tried to rewrite that so that I made that panel make sense? Because as we know, I'm endlessly trying to audition to be Todd McFarlane's editor. So here's my take on that same box. This was done in 1 minute on Blue Sky. Spawn's foes often forget his cape is an extension of his symbiotic suit, crimson flesh that is alive yet unliving. It flares out behind him like the wings of a dragon, expanding until it completely blots the rays of the rising sun. Suddenly, the battlefield is cloaked in shadow. Now, both of them over-narrate something that Brett Booth is very effectively communicating in the artwork, and I'm not saying that I'm some kind of genius for writing that. I'm just saying there are ways, I could have just fixed the grammar, but even if you fix the grammar, there are parts of that, like creating its own massive shadowed base of what? Massive shadowed base? You're talking about a shadow at Spawn's feet. There's no base. What base are you talking about? Anyway, Todd, with great respect, I say, you need an editor, and that them could be me. Okay. Now, this is Spawn 362. Script and plot by Todd McFarlane. Art from Brett Booth. Inks by Adelso Corona. And colors from Robert Nugent. It looked great. I mean, this really was one of my favorite looking issues I've read since I've been back to the main Spawn title. And it did make sense, right? Spawn, all of the powers of the Heaven and Hell and the Dead Zones just got brought back because of Nyx bringing Spawn back. And Spawn is just beset by all these people with powers again who are like, what, you thought we were going to go easy on you now that we have our powers back? No, we hate you, right? So it was really just like an issue-long fight, and it had cool moments that reminded us of what Spawn's powers were, which we have to do because we just spent a whole year without his powers. It's just some of the narration. I mean, you can go through a Spawn issue sometimes, and every narration box has a critical error in it. This one wasn't quite everyone, but I am tempted at this point to just manga translation scanlation style to go through and rewrite all of the caption boxes in every issue of Spawn, so that because I'm convinced there's actually a really great story in here, but I was just kept at arm's length by how bad the script was. It actually has a truly weird reveal, but the art was really cool, and this is the Spawn that you like. The chains, the cape, the demons, it's all back. So I wouldn't call it a jumping on point, but it was very satisfying to me as a Spawn story. I don't read Star Trek comics. I only watch Star Trek on screen. So I didn't read Star Trek 30. I didn't read Star Trek Lower Decks number 5. I did, however, read Star Wars Legacy of Vader. This is the series where Charles Soule, along with Luke Ross on art, Nolan Woodard on colors, and Joe Caramagna on letters, are taking Kylo Ren from the end of episode 8 to the beginning of episode 9. And since I've never seen episode 9, I'm reading the adaptation right now, so I'll finally know what it's about. there was a plus and a minus here. I think the plus was that it's really, well, actually the first plus is the art. God damn, look at that. Wow. I love Luke Ross. He's really jumped the line to be in the top of my favorite Marvel and possibly my #1 favorite Star Wars artist right now. But basically this is Kylo Ren retracing his grandfather's path on Tatooine, which is really interesting because Vader's youth as a slave, as a pod racer, doesn't really track to the history that Kylo Ren has made up in his head. I guess Leia didn't really tell him that much about dear old granddad. And so as he's going through the history, he's kind of like having the urge to revise it as he goes, which is such an interesting take in the modern day, this idea of revisionist history and kind of disposing of the history that you don't agree with. But he finds that there are still some people on Tatooine who remember his grandfather quite well from the time before he was Darth Vader and remember the name Skywalker. This is maybe a little bit too much of a continuity dive without quite enough of Kylo Ren in it, but I think as an issue #2 for a world that we know and a character that we know, it still kept me really hooked. And the art, I mean, this crazy tree palace in the desert, Luke Ross just went off on art on this issue. And I love Star Wars lore, and I love the idea of like Kylo Ren discovering the lore that we already know. That's fun when you know something more than the character and you watch the character come to that realization. So I actually thought this was pretty cool, and I'm continuing. Not as excited about that Star Wars Jedi Knights book, which if you haven't read it yet from last week by Guggenheim, I don't know how it was as good as it was, but it was so good. But I'm starting to have some faith that this new relaunched Star Wars line is actually going to be something to really pay attention to. So this is string #4, issue #4 of 5. This is written by Paul Tobin with art from Carlos Javier Olivares, colors from Sarah Colella, who the colors are really good, and the letters from Taylor Esposito. I don't quite know what to say about this one. I really, really love the concept of this comic, which is this young woman who everybody thinks is a witch, and she's kind of an influencer, but she can see lines for everybody that you've slept with and everybody that you've killed. Hopefully you have more slept with lines than killed, but they're both two kinds of body count. And so she's on this case where she's trying to solve a case, but in the meantime, she's starting to see a faint black line extend from her, so she assumes that somebody's going to kill her, although I'm starting to think maybe she's going to kill somebody. So she's kind of investigating both at the same time. The thing that really kept me hooked here is Carlos Javier Olivares' art is really, really good. Like there's just so much detail on these characters. There's so much to this world. Like the backgrounds have stuff in them. There's so much in the, like, there's just so much surrounding them that they felt real in space. But Paul Tobin's script really just could not get the engine started this issue. We have this long issue of her like investigating this murder by going to a bar and questioning the people in the bar. And it seems just like a chance to hear her overhear a lot of people talking, but it's being used, the overhearing is being used to the point that it almost feels as though she has psychic powers and she's Jean Grey and she's hearing everybody, but she's just an observer and an eavesdropper. But I don't understand why we have to spend so many pages. And it happens all throughout the issue, on the elevator, in the police station. I get part of it is that we're paralleling her eavesdropping on people with the fact that she can see something about them that no one else can see. And I understand that, but I just don't think it's that interesting as a narrative device. And it just felt like this whole issue was that this scene in the garage with the guy who's repairing his motorcycle, whose little brother or little cousin was the one who died. This was interesting. And I found myself really, really engaged here. And I'm engaged in general with this idea that she's afraid somebody might murder her and she's trying to reverse engineer who murdered her. But I just don't know if I can recommend this. I think great concept, really a star-making term from this art team, but I just don't know if the story is there for me. I don't know. I'll read one more issue. I really like this, just her and this police sergeant like going over surveillance tape and her cat's crawling all over her. This to me captured more of the unique whimsy of this book than her in the bar. And also there's a lot of comments about sex constantly, which we've established. I'm not a prude. I like a book with some sexy stuff, but this is just a lot of prurient sex. Like it's like, oh, look how short her skirt is. I can see the moon and the blood. Like, I'm just like, what? I get that one of her powers is seeing people had sex with each other, but I just didn't know what I was supposed to get from that narratively. Okay, The Surgeon. This is on Global Comics. And guess what, y'all? I can see how many views this has on Global Comics. And it's only at 100 views for issue #2, which I recommended pretty highly. So I need you to go over there and read it. I need you to read it because I can see on this one how many views this show is serving. And if there's 1,000 views of this show, then there should be 1,000 views on the comic book, I'm saying. So here's the thing about this. I haven't loved issue 2 and 3 as much as I loved issue *1. Although I think the story from John Fence, it's just so small I can't see it, is really, really good. I think the art by Stan Yak and colors from Pikir are really, really good. Oh, Pence, it's right there. Here's the thing I'll say in this book's favor. This is like Walking Dead meets Mad Max in a way that's exactly what I thought. Sorry, it's on this other, my computer's being slow. Let's just pause and let it get back. That page must be really big. Yeah, that's really big. Okay. Try it again. To me, this is what I thought Walking Dead was going to be. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It just feels a lot like The Walking Dead. It feels like the stakes are big. It feels like it's focused on how this community survives. But I think it gives us a point of view character who's much more dynamic than Rick Grimes ever felt to me. I'm not a big Walking Dead fan. So if you like Walking Dead and you just want to see a version of that that's instead of zombies, it's a little bit more Mad Maxy, that's what this is. The color's great. The art's great. I do think that this focuses a little bit more on kind of just crowds of people as they're storming the walls of this town. And we lose a little bit of the personalities that have been really interesting that have been built up over the past couple of issues here. So I think 1 and 2 are a lot of build up, and this is a lot of payoff for liking those characters, but it leaves us in a really interesting place, and it deepens the character of our main character, the surgeon, in an interesting way. And I still think this is really peak for an independent comic book made by an independent team. The quality of it is just so high that it like really is stunning to me. And if you've got Global Comics, you can just read it. In fact, the whole series is there, so you can binge it, but no spoilers, because I'm only reading it as the single issues come out. All right, let's see how long it's going to take to get off of this page. Oh, that went quick. Okay, this is the final issue of Terror and Fury, which my computer's freaking out. Okay, here we go. From Zenoscope, this is not in their main Grim Fairy Tales universe. This is its own little side superhero universe. And this is just a 3-issue contained miniseries of these two characters, although it connects to some of the other characters in the universe. This was a really, again, World War II. It's about this character who was in World War II. He was just starting to fight vampires on the ground in Japan in World War II. And then the bomb went off. And so he's like, how did I survive? How did the vampires survive? This is just a really good, very well drawn, very kinetic vampire fight story. If you like the idea of a World War II superhero in the modern day fighting vampire, this is going to hit it out of the park for you. Joe Bush's script works really well. Jordi Tarragona's art is really, really good. The colors from Walter Pereira are excellent. Like, I love the colors. Never just saturated enough, just enough light, but enough to make the characters always kind of pop off the page, and some great vampire fighting gore. I think this has just enough continuity, just enough story, just enough character, just enough gore. It's the perfect blend, the perfect cocktail of everything that I want from this kind of book. And I'm really into this particular new superhero universe from Zenoscope. I really enjoyed it, honestly, and I would absolutely buy more. Transformers is the other book I'm slowly catching up on. I'm only in arc number 2, so I can't talk about issue 18. I saw some spoilers from issue 18 online, and I know something really big happened here, but I'm only on issue like 8 or 9 right now. I'm loving George Corona's art. I thought I was going to miss Daniel Warren Johnson. I think I like George Corona better, colored by Mike Spicer in here, and I'm just liking how much heart, just liking how much heart that Daniel Warren Johnson is bringing to the Transformers. It's already on Global Comics up to issue 16, so really easy to binge for just your subscription fee. I think by the time issue 19 hits, I may be caught up. I'm not rushing because I don't know these characters super well, so I like to just sit and enjoy each issue and like learn how all the Transformers are distinct from one another. So I'm not caught up on this one. And I didn't play I thought about just reading 18 since I did get spoiled for what happens in it. And I was going to do that Images of Tomorrow thing, both for this and for Rogue Sun, but I just decided I'm enjoying the journey on this one. Now we come to Violator Origins, issue number 6. This is the last issue of this miniseries. This was a lot of fun. This was a really good Spawn Universe book. Mark Andreyko wrote every issue, but different artists on every issue. Von Randall did the art on this issue with colors from Brad Simpson and letters from World Design. This was an interesting final issue. All of these issues have told one-shot stories from different parts of Violator's history. This issue more just focused on him in the present day of 1992 New York, like right about before he's about to meet Spawn, but also as he's continuing to come into conflict with his angel that he's been separated from his fall from heaven way back in issue number 1. It felt less like a Violator story and more like just Violator commenting on how we've made our own hell for ourselves over the course of the 20th century, which is where he is in 1992. And actually that worked for me. Like this idea that there's this villain, there's this demon, he's on Earth and he's seen so many horrible things happen on Earth. And he's like, maybe you've made your own hell. Maybe you don't even need me. Or maybe that's my perspective as your unreliable narrator. Maybe there are good things in this world and I'm just a bad thing, so I only see other bad things. That really worked. I think issues 1 through 5 were spectacular. And this is just like a little cherry on top of that. I would not go and pick up this issue on its own. It looked incredible. Von Randall, fantastic job on art. Lots of really creepy panels, so many great creepy shots of the clown version of Violator's face. But I would say go read issue number 1 and 2 of this. If you have any interest in Spawn and remember Violator at all, or have ever been curious about Violator, issues 1 and 2 are just so spectacular. And then if you read the whole series, this will be satisfying. This is just not the issue to start on. But speaking about issues that maybe are not great to start on, but certainly were very satisfying, I have to talk about Void Rivals number 17 by Robert Kirkman with art from Lorenzo De Felici, colors from Patrick Patricio Del Pesce, and letters from Russ Wooten. This, after a lot of slow roll, I formed this theory this week that a lot of what Kirkman is doing on this book is he's just writing for trade. And so individual issues are not the most decomposable unit of story, which means individual issues are not very satisfying because they all just have a tiny sliver of what he's trying to accomplish over the course of the trade paperback. And all of the arcs have been that way up until this point. So I was expecting that from this issue, but actually this issue really goes heavy on some background of this world in like a major, like, whoa, that's what this has been all about the whole time kind of way. This is like a big reveal, big turning point issue. So I think if you've been waiting for something to happen, or if you fell off earlier, knowing that this is floating out there for you is a great reason to go and start binging it, because this does answer a lot of questions. I do think some of the other side plots still feel like they barely move and they're kind of repeating the scenes we've already seen in the other issues. But because this delivered in such a big way, I really appreciate it. Also, I think it showed off how good Lorenzo De Felici is at this kind of very proto-Transformers. These characters aren't Transformers. They're kind of their progenitors on Cybertron. He's got a really cool style for them. And now that I see how they connect to the characters in the present day, I appreciate why he's right for this book a lot more than I did on prior issues. So I know I'm always on the verge of dropping this. This is probably the most satisfied I've been ever with this book in this issue. This might be my favorite issue of the book. Now we move on to West Coast Avengers. Now, I was very rough on West Coast Avengers last time around, mostly because of artist Danny Kim. Did it get back in my good graces? Spoilers, yes. I loved this issue. West Coast Avengers are back, baby. Love the script from Jerry Duggan, like Danny Kim's art here, and colors by Arthur Hesley with letters from Joe Caramagna, because Danny Kim stopped overcomplicating it. He just started giving us regular pages. Not everything has to be edgy slices of back and forth panels. Also, he just calmed down and sold the figures standing and acting a little bit more than he did the last 2 issues, which to me felt more like issues number 1 and 2, which I loved. He draws a beautiful Storm and Vision in this scene as they're questioning, Tony Stark, what are you doing? You've got an Ultron on your team. But meanwhile, Tony Stark is like, I don't have time for this. We got to fight Flag Smasher. And there was just such a very, very fun fight with Flag Smasher that had good action, that was also funny. It was all easy to follow. It had page layouts that didn't piss me off. And all the characters got used really well. Jerry Duggan's voice for Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman rather, perfect. And I'm a huge Jessica Drew fan. Love her in this. Great scenes for Firestar, which I think actually pay off Jerry Duggan's long-running arc for Firestar that's been going on for years and years now. And also a really fun tease of what's going to happen next issue in a couple of different ways for conflicts that are coming to Tony Stark's team in the West Coast. It's really weird to think about how this fits in with the current run of Iron Man, because it just doesn't, quite frankly. But this issue is really fun, and it makes me think maybe how much I hated the last couple of issues was a little bit of a fluke. I dropped Witchblade. I just couldn't do it anymore. Now we come to the X-Men issues of the week. But here's the thing. X-Factor, this one actually came after X-Men in the order of X-Man Hunt. I kind of liked the script from Mark Russell and art from Bob Quinn, colors from Jesus Bertov, and letters from Joe Caramagna. Here's the thing. I don't think Mark Russell actually really understands Havoc or Cyclops very well, and so that part of it I did not like. But the fact that Mark Russell just stopped making this a tee-hee-ha-ha book about capitalism and made it a tee-hee-ha-ha book about superheroes, which is what we're here to read, mutants, which is what we're here to read, it worked. This whole idea of X-Factor trying to fight Cyclops as X-Men, and Beast is like, do your powers even do anything? That's not going to be a problem. That's not going to be a problem. Like, that was funny to me. Make the jokes about superheroism. It doesn't have to be every single book about capitalism, Mark Russell. Then it got to Cyclops and Havoc fighting, and it just didn't feel like it had any relation to any X-Men comic book I've ever read ever. So I am very, very happy that this book is going to be canceled in just 2 short issues, because I mean, I'm not happy that the creatives are going to be out of work. I'm not happy that I'm not going to read these characters every month. I'm not going to be happy to be missing out on these sweet, sweet Greg Land covers. But I mean, you know, Greg Land's got plenty of things that he can find with one guy straddling another guy, both of their mouths wide open like that. That's Greg Land's specialty. But I'm just saying, it just doesn't it doesn't know what it is. And this issue and last issue both gave me a hint that if Mark Russell had just played more in the world of making comments about the world of mutants instead of playing in the wider world and just having the mutants be like a elbow nudging joke footnote in their own series, there were places the series could have gone that I think would have satisfied fans, but it's just too little too late, unfortunately, because the book is already canceled. And now we come to what was, if I may confess, there's going to be yelling, my favorite issue of this run so far. Oh my God, Jed McKay. First of all, Netho Diaz, can we talk? I'm so happy that I've stayed on this guy's side because this art has become so evolved. He's taken it so far over the course of the series. I love the colors from First Fuentes Studio and great job on the inks, Sean Parsons. I love how this feels of a piece with Stegman's art because Ryan Stegman is the alternating artist, but it feels specific to Diaz. He has his own faces. I like how his faces are just so broad. I like the way he puts angles on the lips and noses. He's very quickly becoming #1 favorite Magic Ileana Rasputin artist in comics. But then he does the psychic plane and he does this very different look that almost looks uninked, like it's colors right on pencils. The psychic plane stuff, let's talk about script. This is basically the X-Men versus Storm. Should it take all the X-Men to fight Storm? Well, if you've been following Storm's comic recently, maybe. But this just is so many great dimensions of the fight. Quentin versus Xavier, Magic and Psylocke versus Storm. It just, all of it made sense. It felt like it really respected who these characters are. The action was cool. It made me gasp. I couldn't decide which team's side that I was on. It doesn't really matter that this is part of X-Manhunt. You should read Storm right before this because this is really two halves of Storm, to the extent that I actually hope they would, well, if they collect this issue on its own in the X-Men trades, I know it's going to be in the X-Manhunt trade. I hope they put the Storm issue with it because it set it up so well. But this is the first time I genuinely had fun in any of the team books so far in this period with them as a team. I had fun in the first couple of issues of MYX, but they were all solo issues. This was me being like, oh, I remember now why I like X-Men comics, which was a relief, quite frankly. And that is the end of our alphabet. Hey, gang, we did. So glad we made it. Look how far we've come now, baby. Okay, so let's get your comments. And then if there's enough time, we'll see if we have time for some music. I forgot to bookmark where we left off, but I'm sure. Oh, I found it. James Abel on Phoenix #9. The art was good. I think I finally understand why the series is being made for. On a cold night when you don't have any heat, you can light up the fire, and the Phoenix will keep you warm. I disagree that the art was good. I thought the art was tragic. Max Appleman, Phoenix. When will it end? Right? If I had to make a depth chart of books that really need to be canceled in this line, I mean, I don't know. The ones they're canceling were all pretty bad, but this. That was bad. That was a bad comic book. It was bad. Hank, seems J. Michael Straczynski is really good with World War II one-shots, remembering Brave and the Bold flashbacks. Also, the World War II stuff in his Cap run was outstanding. The modern-day Cap run was the sucky part. Does Jean Grey get a lot of hate within the X-Men fandom? No, I wouldn't say that. I think the thing is she was away for so long that many fans came to X-Men while she was dead, from 2003 to 2018. So even though we had Team Jean in there a little bit, there's 15 years of X-Men fans that to them, they're like, oh, she's just a Mary Sue with the Phoenix Force, or like, I don't like Jean and Scott. I like Scott and Emma. Like they developed all their X-Men preferences while she was away, but she's a great character. And she has some hardcore diehard fans on the internet, which honestly are the ones that are probably keeping this title alive. Kane telling me to preach. Probably about hating Phoenix. I don't know. Fifth of Jack Gray Gaming, agree. Glad to not be the only one not liking Timeless Power Man. That first issue was rough. I think the whole concept was rough. Super Crocodile does sound interesting. Here's the thing, Saz. If I let go of how annoyed I am that he's turning this book that seemed like a cool mob book into a superheroes in the early 1900s book, if I can let that go, it's okay. I just think he had something more special without that. That's what I think. I just downloaded Global Comics. I tried out. Looks interesting. It's only like $7.99 US a month. So just try it for 1 month. If you read 2 comics, it pays for itself, right? That's what I say. Edward Billiard had to step away for a late lunch, but glad I'm still going strong. Yeah, one day we're going to figure out how to make this short. Not next week, though. My poll list next week, if I actually buy it all and go through it all, 70 issues. This week was 45. I just don't know. I don't know if I have the time for that. I don't know if the money for that. I don't know if I have the interest. I don't know if I have the voice for that. We'll have to see. The name changes. Spawn is a guilty pleasure of mine. I get all the Spawn books. Same. I just love it. I'm sorry. I'm coming out as a Spawn lover. I'm Spawnosexual. And all I want is Spawn. But the thing is, it's one of those comics that I read it and I can almost see the potential it has, even when it's not living up to the potential. And I think that's what keeps me there. But I do wish Todd would hire me. Yeah, going back to what comic do I want to write? Spawn. It's not even my favorite comic, but I know I could write a good Spawn. I know it. I feel it in my bones. Maybe I need to write a spec script and submit. I don't know. Maybe that's my destiny, making Spawn great again. I don't know. Matt H, so you never have to apologize for being late, my friend. The fact that you make any time for me and my crazy screaming in your world at all is amazing. I'm glad I caught some of it live and will watch the replay. I appreciate all the hard work. JT White Wolf Library, love watching last week's stream again. One of my favorite things to watch gradually across the week. Check in, say hi while it's recess here at work. Hello to you, sir. Kane added Terror and Fury to the wish list. I like it because it's exactly what it says in the tin. It's 2 World War II heroes who are pretty brutal. It kind of reminds me of like Midnighter and Apollo a little bit, kind of vibe-wise, but they're in the modern day and they're fighting vampires. That's what you get. You get exactly that. It's exactly that, and I like a comic that can keep its promise. A Fifth of Jack Gaming is really enjoying Transformers. Worried about when DWJ leaves the title. Do we know who's going to write it after DWJ? I think it just depends on the writer. I think if it's somebody else who can really do that perfect blend between robot action and heart and the human component, I think we're golden, but I don't know how many other people there are that do that right now, honestly. And my fear is they're going to get that Massive Verse main person, Ryan Higgins. That would be terror to me. But he doesn't usually work with Skybound. So you got to look at like the Skybound usual suspects. I don't know. I mean, I think Daniel Warren Johnson's art is so spectacular that people overlook how amazing he is as a writer. And I just worry that no matter who we get, they're not going to be able to keep it up. Lance McNair, not a Transformers buff, but I realize I like the Daniel Warren Johnson run so far. Yeah, I don't know a damn thing. I know Starscape talks like this. That's all I know. That's the only thing I know about Transformers. That's it. So to me, it's like I have a little bit of nostalgia for like seeing their commercials on TV, but I don't have any nostalgia for the property really. So I'm coming to it cold. Name changes, Violator. Oh, name changes. So satisfying. You're in for fun. I think it was really, really high quality. Just a truly great series. James Abel, X Factor 8. It took, I think it's supposed to be took instead of luck. It took 8 issues, but X Factor finally had an okay issue. I agree. Moving on from X-Men 13 to this, you can tell the art doesn't really work at all. I do wonder who's inside the Krakoan resurrection egg. X-Men 13, once again, Magic had the best parts. This is the best part of the crossover. Jed McKay knows how to write everyone amazing, and the reference and call back to other issues with the bonus. I would agree. Eric Garza, I'm enjoying X-Men mainly on the strength and art and quality of Storm and X-Men 13. Yeah, both of those issues were great. I think the first 2 issues were tragic, and then those 2 issues were good, and the X Factor was fine. Lance McNair, I just realized at the end of these streams makes me feel like I felt watching The Bear at the Big Blue House as a kid. In other words, comforting. Oh, good, because I had no idea what we were talking about for a second there, but you took me there. Brendan Riley, have I said hi to you yet? Brendan, I'm so sorry. Brendan Riley. I'm actually the reverse. I didn't dig X Factor versus X-Men, but I loved Cyclops versus Havoc. But yes, McKay and Diaz turned in a phenomenal issue in X-Men 13. Yeah, it just didn't feel like... I don't know if I fully followed the journey that Russell has taken Havoc on, and then some of the things Cyclops was saying to Havoc didn't feel like Cyclops. Like it just didn't feel like what Jed McKay would have written for Cyclops an issue ago. I got my LCS to pull all of X-Manhunt. I'm so sorry. Kane, yeah, that it was about Phoenix. Okay. Lance McNair, I see. So with Jean Grey, it's a classic case of how Star Wars is sometimes original trilogy fans, yes, versus prequel fans versus sequel fans. Yeah, Jean Grey, you have to think. She existed up until 1981, then she was gone until 1986, and that's when Claremont X-Men like really heated up, and Claremont didn't write her in that period. So all the initial fans that loved Claremont X-Men had no relationship with Jean after Dark Phoenix was over, which is really like where fans started to flock to it. So that was 5 years without Jean. And then Jean died again in 2003 and wasn't back until 2018. So the whole like Marvel's popularity increasing with the MCU, House of M, all the events, Second Coming, Marvel Now, no Jean Grey, right? Except for the teen one. So yeah, there's a big swath, 20 years worth of X-Men readers who didn't have a present day relationship with Jean Grey or with the Phoenix Force. And Cruel Angel saying, yeah, 8 issues for me next week. That's a heavy week for you. Yeah, like heavy is heavy. No matter whatever heavy is for you, heavy is for you. So we have reached the end here, and we do not have a lot of outstanding Q&A. I made it to the bottom of the chat, so I think we get to just talk. Oh, just talk for a minute. Gosh, it's a lot of talking. 3 hours of talking. I don't know. Have any of you ever given a college lecture? I mean, I'm talking for 3 hours here. But I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So look, I don't think we're going to do a special bonus stream this week because I think I have some improvements to make from what went on last week that I still need to make. But I think there are going to be more of those in the future. So if you haven't already, please hit the notification bell so that you know, because there's not necessarily going to be warnings. Sometimes they just happen. Like I got on with like 20 minutes warning, I think, on that day last week. I'm always happy in your comments. I think I feel very secure in this format right now as we like roll on to quarter number 2. So I really appreciate you all being here and leaving comments and being a part of it. I mean, I kind of look forward to this as my social time every week. Like I really do feel like I'm having a conversation with you, and it feels like this, I think it could still be a little faster, but it felt like this was the right pace and the right amount of conversation. So yeah, no more appearances this week. We do have an evergreen coming up later this month on Near Mint Condition. We have the DC and Marvel polls coming up later this month on Near Mint Condition. And I will be probably getting back to new guides on Crushing Krisis sometimes very soon. So lots of interesting things about to happen, but nothing this week other than reading a heck of a lot of comments that are going to be coming out later this week. So now I'm going to try to move this a little bit farther away because we're going to do a song. First, though, I do want to say hi to Jeremy, who just got here. What did you miss? You missed dozens and dozens of comments and comics and comments on 45 or 46 of them. But luckily, you can go back and replay whenever you want. How are you, Jeremy? How's your week? What did we miss in your world? All right. There we go. So I'm going to play a song. You know, I loved playing that song last week, Cuts Both Ways, because it's a song I've never played for really anybody anywhere, because I play most of my songs just for myself. It's not like back when I was in my band and my songs were getting played in rooms. Oh, that's not in tune. In rooms and to bandmates. I thought that went a little high. There we go. You all heard me tuning that E up to an F, didn't you? And none of you said anything. You're like, that blind bitch. They can't see their tuner at all, and we're just gonna let them walk right into that. Okay. So yeah, I don't get to play these songs for people anymore, so it's really, really fun to play them all for you. So this song I wrote actually at the same time as that other one, Cuts Both Ways, that I played last week, but it could not possibly be more different than Cuts Both Ways. And so we're going to see if I can play it for the first time on video here. And it's about the internet. It's about the strange sensation of getting older on the internet. Let me just review the chorus for a second, because I always forget where it starts. High chance of me forgetting my own song here. Okay. Well, we're just going to try. Okay. Oh, you know what? I do want a firmer pick. So anyway, it's been great talking to you. I hope you all stay happy and healthy this week. This is called Past Tense, Present Tense. I can't find you on the internet, but I did a couple things I regret back then. I just now remember them a decade later. But I can't find your name anywhere. Did you erase yourself to escape my gaze, or live a quiet life and forget my name? Or maybe you died, but if you died, would I feel better or just feel the same? 'Cause I think I should take it back, or be bolder, I'll just do it all over. But I know I'm stuck in the past, I'm still obsessed about it. I know I can't change anything now, in the past tense or present tense. I never planned to lose you. Well, you were resting your head on my shoulder. It's not like I chose to. It's just another sad part of getting older. You hold on tight, but you drift apart. I once knew your secrets, now I don't know if you exist. Maybe you died, but if you died, I should be able to find your obituary. But I wish I could take it back, or be bolder, I'll just do it all over. But I know I'm stuck in the past, I'm still obsessed about it. I know I can't change anything now, in the past tense, present tense. One thing that never changed is the way you intrude on my brain. I used to think about you so much that I forget how to picture your face, and now I I can't find your name. I know I should take it back, or be bolder, or just do it all over. I know I'm stuck in the past, I'm still obsessed about it. No, I can't change anything now. In the past tense or present tense, I wish I could take it back, or be bolder, I'll just do it all over. But I know I'm stuck in the past, I'm still obsessed about it. I know I can't change anything now. In the past tense or present tense. Well, I'm very excited to see that played back for me for the first time, because I have no idea what it sounds like or what faces I make while I play it. So that's past tense or present tense. I've been Krisis. You've been wonderful. Have fun reading comics. Treat people well in the world. Remember, everybody's a main character in their own story. So try to be a side character that they will appreciate and look back fondly on, while also living your own tale. And also, trans rights are human rights. And let's treat everybody equally out there. Take care, and I will see you again for more comics next week.